Hello.
Hello, gentlemen. Good God, am I got a big head. I got to move away from that. Oh my God.
How are you?
I'm
You
well.
start the comments. 1 minute, Steve. Thank you.
I don't know.
Comments. Let's stop the comments so they won't.
Turn off comments. Okay.
Voila.
Guys, we're sorry to turn off the comment. Give us a few time to speak with Mr. Saka first, and then we're gonna receive your questions.
Steve, let me present myself. This is Eli. I'm the one sending you a few emails, bothering you with a couple of them. And this is my partner.
Qasim.
This is Qasim. We are both the founder of Los Osos Tranquilos.
Well, it's very nice to meet you, gentlemen.
Nice to meet you too, Mister.
And I know you know a little of Spanish, so Los Osos refers to the bears.
Yes, I got that. It's the Tranquil Bears.
Exactly.
Don't you find yourself one?
Tranquil? No. A bear, yes.
Not so.
Tranquil, never. Tranquil is not.
Tranquil never.
No. Nothing is ever tranquil in my life or about me.
It seems so.
Troublemaker. I actually, Steve, I wrote like a welcome or an opening word, but I'd rather say my own in the beginning, just few words, like my personal opinion. It's not something of, to me, you are, Steve, frankly, you are huge. You are big in every possible way. Your legacy, the accomplishment, the beautiful cigar you created, you are incredibly ahead of the curve when it comes to creating a concept, a blend, and a cigar. I want you to know that because the questions are not as nice as that. So the minute I start throwing question, you will start hating me. I hope not.
Let's go.
Let's go.
Look, those are very generous words. I don't know that I deserve half of them. I'm definitely huge in waistline. I've got waistline down pat. So, yeah, no, thank you very much. I appreciate that. Too kind.
Can I go ahead with my welcoming note or welcoming speech? Let's say.
Dude, it's your show. You can do whatever the hell you want. So,
thank you, sir. Okay, Dunbarton, Tobacco and Trust. Nobody knows why trust. I've heard a few rumors, but if you haven't, gentlemen, now addressing our audience, if you haven't heard of this company, and you probably didn't, maybe you met someone smoking a sobremesa brûlée or a sin compromiso. If still you didn't, then you would better have heard of Steve Saka. Have you not heard of this guy? Please, please quit smoking and cut the grass of your yard. Make your wife happy. Steve Saka, an engineer, barely if ever an author, a marketing wizard, a CEO, and a cigar architect. What a journey. Los Osos has the privilege tonight to host Steve Saka, a persona whom many questions his character, his controversial personality, and above all, they questions his path in the world of cigar. Some call it a series of lucky strikes, while some see it as a chain of ingenious calculated steps. Steve Saka, you make good to great cigars, very sophisticated cigars, great blends, elegant cigars, but between parentheses, everything that you are not. Actually, they are so conflicting with what you represent. I don't know what to call you. I mean, a big part of me wants me to call you Steve. I already did. But the fact that we never really met Steve, I meant I watched all your videos while you probably didn't know I existed until I wrote to you, makes me obliged to call you Mr. Saka. Am I obliged to call you Mr. Saka?
no, most people just call me Saka. They skip the Mr. part. Some people call me Steve.
Saka.
Some people call me Saka. Some people call me asshole. Yeah, everybody has their own words. So pick whichever one makes you feel good.
What's
I'm
your
happy
son
with any of
called
them.
you?
I'm
What's your
sorry.
son called you? Daddy?
What does my son call me? Never really thought about it. Probably Dad more than anything else. Yeah.
Good.
But most people just call me Saka. I've always kind of gone by
Okay,
my last
son.
name.
I love
It's a simple
that.
last name. It's easy to remember. It's you know.
What's the origin of the family Saka or the word
Yeah, it's
Saka?
a Saka name. I received it via Turkey. My father is a Turkish immigrant. He came to
Okay.
America when he was just of age. Um, my understanding is there's not a lot of Sakas in Turkey. There seems to be more Sakas in places like Ethiopia and whatnot. It's one
Okay.
of these. I think it's one of these names that just kind of got swept up in the Ottoman Empire and all the shifts and the transitions that happened there. Because I believe it is much more, I think its true origin is more Mongol in nature, and that it
Mhm.
was migrated west with the expansion of Genghis Khan. So I think that's the case. But for me, it's Turkish. That's my father was Turkish, so therefore the name is Turkish.
Okay.
Good to know.
We're neighbors, one way or the other. Would you like me to start with our list of questions, or you have a
Let
counter
me.
opening statement?
No, I don't really care what you said in your opening statement. It's irrelevant. I mean, the truth is, look, we live in an age where people make their own opinions about everything, and it's very hard to. I mean, I find for me, my best way is just to be who I am, and then people decide what they want to decide, and they can take it for what it is. I'm at a very different point in my life. I don't feel the need to prove anything to anybody. So, and I don't mean
You
that to
should be
sound
doing.
arrogant.
You're
It's
right.
more so just like I just really just don't care anymore. I know I'm just at
Exactly.
that stage in my life that I'm going to do what I want to do, when I want to do it, how I want to do it, and you know, nobody. I'm not earning a paycheck off anybody, so it's nice to be independent. You know, it makes
Yeah.
things a lot easier in life.
Yeah.
But yeah. So you ask the questions. We'll let the people decide whether that intro was spot on or not spot on.
Sorry, I start with my questions.
Yes. Start with your questions. Fire away.
All right. There are not many, about like 15 max. Is that okay?
Whatever.
Well, you stated once the better educated is a cigar smoker, the more likely who would be a customer of my product. You said that. I quote.
Yes.
What a demeaning statement, Steve. Telling everybody who doesn't smoke a Steve Saka cigar, you are uneducated. What is your say on that statement, please?
No, that's not what I was saying. What I was saying is that you're more likely to smoke my cigar if you are educated rather than not being educated. And what I meant by educated is I meant experienced. I think that the more cigars that you've experienced, the more you start to zone in on what is good, what is bad, what you like in a cigar, what you dislike in a cigar, what flavor profiles you prefer, what is actually complex, what is actually strong, what is actually mild. And of course, these are relative to terms that are going to be defined by you as an individual. But I think that when you're in your early years of cigar smoking, it takes quite a while for you to figure out what's good and bad. Not just good and bad for you, but just good and bad, period. Because the truth is, no matter what brand of cigar it is, there's somebody out there telling you it's an absolutely great cigar. I mean, there's great ratings for everything. There's not a single cigar on the planet that hasn't received a 90 plus rating. There's so many bloggers and reviewers at this point. There's not a single cigar that someone hasn't posted a picture of to say it's their favorite, you should get it immediately, blah, blah, blah. But I mean, when I look down that laundry list, particularly in social media groups, I really think that like 85% of the people just are really smoking subpar cigars. and they're just uneducated. I think that for the same dollar cost, and I think for the same genre, whether it be whatever, medium plus spicy style Habano Cuban seed cigar, that there's 7 or 8 alternatives for them that would actually be much better cigars. They just don't know it yet. You know what I mean? So I think that we're in a market where there's a tremendous amount of good, there's a tremendous amount of decent, but we're not in a market where there's a tremendous amount of exceptional. And I don't think that the average consumer can actually identify exceptional from good, very good, decent. I think they don't have the palate yet, they don't have the experience yet, and therefore they don't really know what yet to appreciate. And I don't mean that in a way to belittle them. It's where we all started. We all started in this way. We have all had the experience of where we've fallen in love with a dozen different ladies along the way to then discover that really she wasn't the girl for me. Our own flavor desires change. We almost all go through this period where we go into hyper, super strong cigars, and then we kind of dial back. We all kind of, as cigar geeks, go through our little Lancero phase, and we go through our Figurado phases. And, you know, sometimes they stick and sometimes they don't. But the point is, the more cigars you smoke, the more you become comfortable with what in your mind is good versus bad, great versus good, exceptional versus great, what it really means for a cigar to be consistent, you know, versus, oh, I ended up smoking 3 perfect ones in a row, and therefore it's the best cigar ever made kind of logic. And I just think it takes time. I don't know. I think that a typical consumer can smoke one of my cigars and can say, oh, that was a really good cigar, and may become a customer of the cigar. But I don't think that they can appreciate it the same way as the person that has smoked cigars for 20 and 30 years and have had the experience of smoking, you know, tens of thousands of cigars. Me personally, I've smoked 100,000 cigars personally in the last 3 decades. Maybe
We
probably.
made the mathematics, yeah.
Right. I mean, it's just
on average, you did 90,
right.
95,000.
Right. When you smoke 10 a day, it isn't hard to do when you've been doing that for 3+ decades. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
So I'm really super comfortable in what I know I like and I dislike in a cigar. And I think that people are better able to judge my cigars when they've had enough experience with other cigars. So then they can really put it in kind of the perspective of where they actually fall. Whether they like them or not like them, that's a different situation. That has to do with aroma and strength and flavor profile. But so I think in my case, the more educated, the more experienced a consumer it is, the more likely that they will appreciate the difference that you get out of one of my cigars. Because the bottom line is my cigars are a touch better than other cigars. That effort is put into them. And I'm not saying that I'm the only one. No, there's other cigars that are. But the point is, you as a consumer, can you recognize which those are? Or are you still basing it on, oh, I happen to smoke this last, and oh, it tastes really good, so therefore it's a really great cigar? That's just not the case. And I just don't, I think it takes time for consumers to get there.
Yeah, I agree completely.
You're right.
Question number 2. Some say you are a pain in the ass, or excuse my French. Some say you are full of BS. What I noticed, Steve, it looks like everybody is against you, especially the big guys from the industry, those who have everything, the plantations, the factories, the sales geeks, the marketing dollars, and the brand recognition. What do you have? You don't come from any cigar family. How possibly are you competing with them? It's a puzzle. Please explain the puzzle.
Well, first off, am I difficult? Am I a pain in the ass? The answer is yes, I am. I mean, I am difficult. I'm very demanding. I'm very exacting. I know what I want. I know how I want it to be. I don't always get it, but I strive for it all the time. I am difficult. I am not I don't just take things casually. At the same time, though, I'm not unfair. My partners that I work with, yes, I'm probably their most difficult customer ever, but I'm also the customer that pays them the most money. I don't expect
Yeah,
them to
we know
do
that.
things on the cheap. So when I have these requirements or I have these demands or I have these expectations, I am compensating them for that. And the other thing too is they don't go into the relationship blindly. I mean, it's not as though I'm not well known and people are experienced with how I am. Yeah, I require a lot. I ask a lot. I demand a lot, but I'm not unreasonable. And but now, as far as me being full of bullshit, I don't know. I mean, I think to a degree we all are, right? I mean, it is part of what you do in life. You do tend to spin things a bit better. But honestly, don't think I think that's more an issue that they're just not good at really communicating. They're not good at interacting with their customers. They're not good at understanding what their customers want. They're not good with they consider what I do to be just marketing, but what I'm doing is nothing that isn't available to them. If anything, they have all of that and they have tremendous options that I don't have. Now,
Yeah.
from the perspective of, look, I've never made any bones about this. I have never felt as though, even when I was president of Drew Estate, when I first got to Drew Estate, one of the things they were really focused on was, oh, well, there's CAO and there's Tatuaje and there's Illusion and, there's all these like small, mid-sized companies, La Florida Dominicana, and these are all of our competitors, and we need to do whatever we can to beat them. My attitude from day one is they weren't our competitors. There's only certain competitors. It's Davidoff, it's Altadis, it's STG, and now it happens to be Swisher too. Drew Estate Swisher, because they're of that size. I don't want to take. I don't want 10% of Nicholas's business, or 10% of Roma Craft's business, or 10% of Lito Gomez's business. I mean, those guys work hard. They deserve their money. No, everything I do is designed to go after the big guys. I don't do anything designed to go after the little guys, because actually in my world, I need the little guys to do a great job, because it gives the retailers more confidence in the fact that there can be a small brand that can be consistent and sustainable and operated well, that they can then have faith to put on the shelves. But everything I do is targeted towards taking away business from the big players. That is what my goal is. And I don't make any bones about it. And I'm trying to get people that would smoke a Padron to try a Sin Compromiso. I'm trying to get people that would smoke an Opus X to smoke a Sobremesa. I'm trying to get the person that would smoke a Davidoff White Label to try one of my cigars. I'm trying to get the Habanos guy to smoke one of my cigars. That is what I'm trying to do. So I want to take their business. I don't want to take the little guy's business, because they don't have enough business to give up.
Aim
And
high.
this mentality served me really well when I was an executive at JR. And this mentality served me incredibly well when I was president of Drew Estate. And it appears to be serving me well now when I'm Steve Saka, co-owner of Little Podunky Dunbarton Tobacco and Trust. I mean, because every time someone smokes one of my cigars, that means they aren't smoking somebody else's cigar. So the question is, whose cigar are they not smoking in lieu of smoking one of mine? And given the fact that the bulk of the cigars I make range from, in the US, I mean, I only have one brand that's sub $10. Most everything I make is in the $12 to $15, $15 to $20 range. So I'm making at the top end of the handmade premium threshold. And so those are the guys that I'm going after. I mean, those are the consumers, and it works out well for me because as I've gotten older and I've been able to afford more expensive things, I kind of find those are the type of cigars I like to smoke now. And I'm not saying you can't get a great cigar for $8, $9 in the US. You can. I just personally don't find myself smoking a lot of them. You know what I mean? And because, I mean, but at the same time, so that's kind of driving it. So yeah, if I were the big guys, I would not like to see me do well.
No,
I do
not the
not
big
think
guys.
I don't think it behooves them, and I also think that they also understand that I'm not operating at the same level as the other little guys because I've been the big guy twice, so I understand how that game is played, where they're playing the game, and that is not something that normally is the case for little companies. Little companies are kind of learning as they go. Now, there's certain things I'm learning as I'm going, but there's a lot of shit that I already have figured out that I already know, and that I'm actually smarter than the executives that they have in their company board seats. Okay? And I know that, and they know that too. Now, is that arrogance? Maybe it's arrogance. Maybe it's confidence. I don't know what you want to call it, but it's the truth. Okay? Yeah. It just simply is. And the thing that also is that I am the consumer. I'm the ultimate cigar geek. I'm the guy that's really into it because I just love cigars and I love tobacco, and I've never lost those roots. So what that ends up meaning is it means that I'm a guy that actually understands tobacco, understands farming, understands the factory, understands factory operation, understands distribution, understands sales, understands the marketing, understands the retail chain, understands all the values, understands the FDA, understands intellectual property, and I fucking understand the consumers too. Yeah, I mean, it's
that's your plus.
It's a huge plus. Now, am I an absolute expert in any of those things? Maybe 2 or 3. I'd kind of push myself up there. But
which are
I'm not, well,
smoking
understanding the consumers. Understanding the consumers is really a big one. And also, I've really over the years become very good at blending. I've been very, very good at playing the role of ligador. And I'm also good at not really following trends, but I'm good at kind of setting trends, and that helps a lot. But part of that setting the trend thing is really nothing more than you doing something different and then ultimately being successful at it. Because if you do something different and it's successful, well, I'm in an industry of people that copy shit, so they're just going to copy whatever. It's the way it works. So and I've always been good at that. I mean, and I've been blessed, but it hasn't. Is there a certain element of luck? Of course, right? But honestly, I'm not really a networker. No, I'm not really the networking guy. I don't really get I kind of do my own thing, and just everybody else does their own thing, and we'll just see where it all shakes out. And I'm also not foolish to think that success is guaranteed. I'm fully aware of how tenuous a position a small cigar company like mine is in. And I don't take for granted the success that we're currently enjoying, because it certainly isn't guaranteed. There's no, oh my God, you did this before, so therefore you will be successful again. That's just not true.
Yeah. Let's move on. Qasim has a couple of questions.
Let me ask you here, Steve, allow me to say a few bizarre names. I hope you recognize them. Sin compromiso, mi querida, muestra de Saka, sobremesa, which is the one I'm having now, Umbago, todos los días, polpetta, and red meat lover. For most of us, those sound the name of Brazilian cars. Why the weird name? Why
Well,
the weird names?
well, the names,
Brazilian drugs.
so I mean, what's a weird name? It isn't a weird name. First off, you have to understand that now coming up with a name is almost impossible. International
Yeah.
Class 34 at the USPTO, which does the US trademarks, is just so crowded, it's crazy. And it used to just be the cigarette guys and the handmade guys in there, and now we got everything. We got the vape guys, we got the CBD guys, we got the alternative weed guys. I mean, so coming up with an original name is almost impossible. It's so difficult. And the other thing too is we now have the language requirements of it used to be I could use a name in Spanish, and even if it was used in in English, it was okay. Now that word has to be basically free in English, Spanish, Italian, and French. I don't know why Italian and French, but the Italian and French got in there. I think
They
they would
have
have
good
like
cuisine.
have
They
good
have good
cuisine. I will
cuisine.
give them that. But so that's the way it works. So it becomes really difficult. So with most of my core products, I tend to make them Spanish Latin because that's kind of where I started in cigars. Everything was Cuban-esque, Cuban by design, making, repeating
Yeah.
Cuba. That's when I fell in love with cigars. So for me, those Latin names always hold a place for me. So, with a brand but I try to make the brands have not just be some pretty words, but I try to make them have meaning. So, in the case of sobremesa is the time after the meal where everyone gets together, enjoys everyone's company. It's where you smoke your cigar. It's the time you spend together at the table as family and friends after dinner, enjoying each other. And that's when a cigar would usually be smoked in my household and in many cigar smokers' households. So sobremesa for me always had that romantic name. Mi querida means my mistress, my love. Well, cigars are my love, and
You've
in
been
this
married for
case,
40 years. You were
yeah,
19 when you get married. Do you have a mistress, Saka?
right. Well, right. I have a mistress, and it's cigars. That's the point. I got married at 19, and I've been married 37
And it
years.
seems
So
your
for
wife is
me,
okay with that.
yeah, she's well. If she ever realized I've spent over $1 million smoking cigars, I don't know how she'd feel about it, but she knows. Who am I kidding? But so the names have purpose. Sometimes I want the name to be a little bit more Americanized. So like Umbagog, but Umbagog is my lower price product.
Yeah.
It's the one that I use as my yard cigar. It's the one I use to fish with, and Lake Umbagog happens to be my favorite fishing lake. So the cigar just becomes Umbagog. But there always seems to be some sort of reason why I make the name the name. And sometimes that's a problem because it would be easier just to come up with something that sounds pretty. But then if something sounds pretty, it doesn't have a soul, right? So you want it to sound attractive, but you also want it to have a soul. You want there to be purpose behind the name. But look, there's plenty of names that are just invented out of thin air that ultimately become successful. So there's definitely a lot of different ways of thinking about it. Um, I think I'm working on a project now that I don't think the name will be Spanish because the
No?
brand has influences from a lot of countries that aren't Latin. And
Mm.
so I think that'll be next. But I mean, I have some basic rules of thumb. I like them for to be 3 or 4 syllables long. I like for them to have a sexy cadence to them that they're good to say. I don't like difficult words. I mean, I know mi querida will be difficult to some, but once you kind of get the hang of it, it's a pretty melodic kind of name. It's mi querida, you know what I mean?
Yeah,
Sobra
yeah.
mesa. Well, but if you think about it, all the great names,
Syllables.
Romeo and Juliet,
Yes, rhythmic
Monte
syllables.
Cristo, Cohiba. There's a cadence. There's a high and a low to the way they are,
It's
and this kind
rhythmic
of and
syllables.
it right, and it helps people remember the names because it's really hard. There's so many names, and we in the cigar business, we actually think we like foolishly think that people know what the fuck we're actually doing, and they don't have a clue. They're not paying attention. They got real lives. They just want to smoke good cigars. You know what I mean? They don't need to get into all the minutia and all the details. Yeah, is there a certain amount of us out there that are into all that shit? Absolutely, we are, and we dig into it. But the reality is, 99% of the consumers, they just want a cigar that smokes well, draws well, burns well,
Exactly.
doesn't taste like a cat's ass. You know what I mean? Something they can relax with. You know, it's much different.
Yeah.
You know, those customers, those aren't really my customers. Now, if I do my shit right, maybe they become my customers over time. You know what I mean? I mean, look, regular
We've
people
become
weren't
one.
smoking. Right. Well, regular people weren't smoking Padron anniversaries in 1995, 96. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Nobody was trying Cohiba Behiki back in 2010, 2011, except for the Uber cigar Cuban geeks, right? They were the ones seeking them out. Those are the ones finding them. And here we are, what, 11 years in the future, and you can get Behikis wherever the hell you want as long as you're willing to pay your $110 to $160. Now,
Exactly.
you know, I know the Behikis that are on the shelf today are a very pale shadow of those Behikis that were on the shelf, in my opinion, back in 2010, 2011, right? But now there's probably 50 times more people smoking Behikis. You know what I mean? Because
Exactly.
now the average guy is now having the chance to smoke Behikis as long as he can pay his way. You know, so you know, but yeah, names are more important than you think they would be. Names kind of set up the tone. I mean, imagine if my name was Dilbert. My name was Dilbert. Before I even said one thing, people would they'd have an impression of who I am just by the fact that I have the name Dilbert. Fair or unfair, that would be just the way it is, right?
Yeah.
Right.
I mean, so there is value in a good name.
Okay.
Well, that leads.
This leads to the second question. And following to the same in logic, why
Mm-hmm.
a different number of sticks for different boxes? We see 7, we see 10, we see 13. Why?
Yeah, well, part of that is me kind of playing around trying to figure out what's right. Um, Like in a perfect world, I'd rather just put cigars in 25 count boxes or 50 count boxes and be done with this nonsense. It would make life so much simpler. And it would also help reduce the cost to the consumer and reduce the cost to me too. Because the truth is, I don't make jack shit on any of this packaging material. All this stuff is a bane to all of us who make cigars for a living. You have no idea the amount of work and time and attention that's put in to getting boxes and papers and seals and bands and the appropriate adhesive. You know, it's not the same adhesive for the band as it is for the seals that go on the box. And there's so many little bits and bobbles that you literally need from like 7 or 8 different countries to make this packaging happen. But you have no choice but to do it. Now, as cigars have gone up in cost, it's gotten to where if you put them in a 25 count box, it becomes very hard for the average consumer to buy a typical box of cigars anymore. Because, you know, let's say those cigars are legitimately $14, $15 cigars. You put them in a 25 count box, and what are we at now? We're
400.
getting we're getting over $400 for that box of
Okay.
cigars.
Makes
It's too
sense. Yeah.
much. So then you're trying to figure out, okay, how do I scale it back? The problem is, as you put less cigars in the box, it just makes the packaging cost go up on every cigar in the box. Because it doesn't cost less to make a box that's half the size. You know what I mean? It's not like half the price. Yeah,
I know.
I might save a dime, you know what I mean, in raw box
But not
material,
much.
but not much at all, right? Because it's the
Yeah,
same
yeah.
number of cuts, it's the same number of joints, the same number of
Exactly.
work to build the box that's going to hold 10 cigars as the box that's going to hold 25 cigars.
Exactly.
So it just drives up the cost. But what it does do is it brings the cost down to where now the consumer can still have the ability to buy an entire box of cigars and not cross into the $400 threshold. So, because look, we all, as cigar smokers, we like buying whole boxes. There's something,
Exactly.
it's great going and picking up your singles, but it isn't the same as owning the whole box and doing that Christmas morning lift of the lid and seeing it all perfect there and taking the first one out and watching those
Yeah,
little
yeah.
soldiers go away one by one as you smoke through the box. There's a certain amount of, it gives you a certain feeling, right, to do that. And so,
Exactly.
and
Absolutely right.
consumers like it. So, so now the question is, how many cigars do you put in the box? Well, here's the problem. When you stare at a box on a shelf, things that are in odd numbers are more appealing than things that are in even numbers. If you don't believe me, just, hey, any of you at home, take the pens out of your pen thing, put 4 pens on a table, stare at them, then pick one up and stare at it with 3 pens. The 3 pens will look better than the 4 pens. And if you add a 5th pen, the 5 pens will
Interesting.
look better than the
Very
4
good
pens.
point.
Interesting.
And the reason why is because the eye likes to have a central focus point. And when you have an
Exactly.
uneven number of cigars, it gives you that uneven focus point. And the other thing
Exactly.
too is, so an uneven number is good. The other thing that's good is the closer that you get to that perfect rectangle, you know what I mean? Which I don't know the exact numbers, but it's roughly 3 by 2. That also is just a visually appealing shape to the human eye. And again, these are all the little things that you don't think about, but they actually do make a difference in when you're
It looks
deciding
more
what
appealing.
cigar. Right, it's almost subconscious, you know what I mean? And I'm trying to adjust
Sure.
this camera a little bit without getting crazy here. So you have that you always have to work with. And the other thing too is, if you start making the box like 9 count, then it ends up being so narrow on the shelf that it gets lost. Whereas 13 count for me seems to be the perfect number, because that is
13.
very close to the triple 3-2. It gives me my uneven number. It has the
Exactly.
same visual presentation as a standard, Cuban box of cigars, where it's 13 on top, 12 on the bottom with the dummy. So it has a very quintessentially classic feel to it. So I have started now, and I've experimented with all of these. The original Silver Mesas in 25, Todos Las Dias is in 10. Muestra's a little different. I put it in 7 because they were so damn expensive because of the coffins. That was a different scenario,
Because of the coffins.
but I seem to have kind of settled on where it looks like for me 13 is right for most things. But I don't have an interest in going back and fixing something right now that's selling as is. So I
If it's
kind
not
of,
broken, why fix it?
right, I don't fix it. But it does seem to me that 13 seems to be the right number for me in the price point I'm at to get the shelf presentation that I personally like. Now, of course, some cultures 13 is unlucky. So in other cultures, it's a very lucky number. I don't
It's
ultimately care because
controversial.
I can't keep track of everybody's little phobias, so.
Saka, I like one of your statements. I followed you for some time now, and I know most of your quotes, but one of them is very intriguing. You said once, and I quote, if you get everybody's opinion on how to make something they like, you end up doing something that nobody loves. A very deep, thoughtful statement. Would you please elaborate on how Steve Saka blend his cigars, or at least one of his cigars? Tell us a story. People love stories.
So the basic gist of the quote is, when you make a cigar that everybody likes, you've ultimately made a cigar nobody loves. So, and what I mean by that is, look, cigars are very personal. We all have different things that we find appealing in cigars. For example, I tend to like my cigars for the draw. I want the draw to be open enough that I get a good flow, but I don't want it to be super open. I don't like a super airy draw. I like for the draw to provide a little bit of resistance. I like it because it slows the smoke down and it ultimately burns cooler. And when it burns cooler, it burns more evenly. And when it burns more evenly and cooler, it tends to allow the flavors and the nuances of the tobaccos to be more identifiable. So that's what I like. So if you said to me, for me, the perfect draw is like when you go to the drive-thru and you get a fast food milkshake, but you don't try to drink it right away because it's too frozen. You leave it in the cup holder for about 5-6 minutes. That's kind of where I like my draw to be.
Exactly. True.
So when you take a big pull on a cigar, what I like to see is I like to see the smoke to continue to cascade out of the head for about 4 to 5 seconds.
Okay.
Yeah.
So that's what I'm looking to have happen. So if I see someone smoking one of my cigars, I can tell when it's too draw or when it's too tight or too loose, because if that smoke comes out a little too thin, I know it's too loose. If the smoke doesn't come out dense enough, and too slow, I know that it's a little too tight. But that's what I like. Somebody else, they're going to like a cigar like, for example, Padron rolls theirs. Padron rolls their cigars very loose. I mean, you could smoke a Padron Toro in like 35 minutes, right? The thing just boom, goes up like a fuse. But if you like that draw, then you like that draw, okay? And it's the same thing when it comes to flavor. Everybody's different. So my point is, if you make a test blend and you give it to a dozen people to try, what you're likely to get is a dozen different opinions. This guy's going to say it's too strong. This one's going to say it's too narrow. This chick over here is going to say she wishes it had more chocolate flavor. This guy over here is going to be like, oh, it's too strong and too spicy. This joker over here is going to be like, oh, it isn't strong enough. I wish it had more pepper. And that's because we're all coming to it with our own personal, what we like and we don't like. So I learned long ago to never, ever ask anybody's opinion about anything, because in the end, they will always have an opinion. And in the end, it will never be the opinion of everyone else. So when I make blends, nobody is ever involved in the tasting procedure at all. Like even at the factory, they don't even get a say in it. I don't give a fuck.
You alone.
Like you. Me alone. I'm it. I'm the final arbiter. I make the final decision on everything with nobody else's opinion, because in the end, I'm the guy that has to live with the ramifications. I'm the one that has to live with it if it turns out that I invested all this time and effort and money and it doesn't sell, right? I'm the one that has to bear the burden of its failure. So why do I want to listen to some other jagoff's opinion when I've got my own jagoff opinion? And so I have a long time ago learned that I only make cigars that I want to make, that I like, and I think that other people will like them, but I also understand that not everybody will like them. But for people whose palates have some of similar traits to my palate, they're probably going to be very pleased with my cigars. For people whose palates are completely different than my palate and what they see as being good in the cigar, they're probably not going to be happy with any of my cigars, because I just make cigars for me. And then ultimately what I hope happens is I hope that other people will appreciate what I appreciate about them also. But yeah, you can't. Yeah, if you make something where you just, and this is one of the reasons why the big companies are so, they focus group everything. They test everything. They have, they have their office staff give their opinions. They have their sales team give their opinions. The big ones actually get consumer groups to come in and give their opinions. I don't understand how that's supposed to make something better. All that makes is something in the middle. You know what I mean? It doesn't make anything interesting. It doesn't make anything exciting. And I just don't get the concept. It's like we're going to paint a masterpiece and everybody gets one stroke with a brush. You know what I mean? I don't understand that. And I even go a step further. I don't even understand the whole concept of collaborations. I mean, if you like cigars made by whoever, just pick your favorite maker off the top of your head. There's a reason why you like that gentleman's cigars. And if you like cigars made by me, there's a reason why you like my cigars. Why you think the two of us working on the same cigar is going to give you a cigar twice as good is just not the way it works. There's a reason why you like that person's product. They have a certain style, a certain flair, a certain genre, and that's what they do. and then I have a certain flair, a certain style, a certain genre of what I do. It doesn't mean that it's going to be better when you put the two together. I love Picasso. I love Rembrandt. I don't think those two people painting on the same canvas is giving us great art. I just don't. You know what I mean?
Exactly.
And I
You can't get two painters to paint one painting.
right. And it's like, look, there's a reason why the chef is the chef. You know what I mean? And then there's a reason why you're the diner. You as the diner get to determine that, hey, this chef sucks. I don't like what this guy does here. I'm not coming back to this restaurant again. Or, oh, that chef's amazing. I can't wait to try what they come up with new and next. You know what I mean? And I think that once you start letting other people impact what you're doing and give their opinions, and you use those opinions to try to make your product better, more sellable, whatever you want to call it, I think you're losing your way. That's my opinion. You know, but again, it's an easy opinion to have when you're small like me, and I don't have to worry about paying 1,700 people's, you know, paychecks at the end of the week. You know what I mean? It's easy to be high and mighty when your responsibilities are much lower than when you're responsible for whoever. You know what I mean? The Drew Estate Factory, and you've got to pay all of those people. You need something that is going to be widely commercially viable. You know what I mean?
Exactly.
Whereas for me, I'm just kind of like, I hope it sells. It'd be great if it sells. You know what I mean? It's not the same kind of pressure. It's very different.
Right.
Awesome.
Okay. Now, when Steve Saka wants to smoke a Cuban cigar, which one would he smoke? Brand and Vitola, please,
Yes.
and why?
Okay, so for me today, most Cuban cigars are too mild for my palate.
Okay.
So, you know, back in the late 80s, early 90s, I smoked a lot of Habanos. When I say a lot, out of the 100,000 cigars I've smoked, probably 9,000 plus of them have been Cuban. So I've had a decent amount of Habanos experience. So typically when I smoke a Cuban today, it's because I want something that's milder. So I will still smoke like a H. Upmann Sir Winnie, or I will smoke like a Quedi Orze, the Churchill size one. I believe that's the Tanos. I think I have that correct, but is that true? No.
You are
Tanos is
going
over,
for mild
yeah.
cigar, definitely.
But the Quedi
That's
Orze double
something.
Corona.
Saka.
The other thing that I do is I tend to smoke like Ramon Allone's small club Coronas, or because I like that kind of petite format, and I still have a soft spot in my heart for like for all three of those Robustos, the Partagas Series D, the Ramon Allone specially selected, and then also I will gravitate in with and this isn't a Robusto, but I still have a little bit of an affinity for, well, it is. The Boulevard Royal Corona is one that is still a Robusto. And then the other cigar that I seem to smoke more than I probably should is just plain old Punch Punch. There's just something about when I get a really good box of Punch Punch, the way they're supposed to be. And look, I don't buy a lot of Cuban cigars anymore, but the few vendors that I do buy from, they kind of know what I'm looking for. So when they get a couple nice cabinets of Punch Punch in, they'll set them aside and say, "Hey, Steve, we have something we think is right for you. You know, we want to send it along," and I take it. But in an average week now, so if I'm smoking, you know, 60, 70 cigars a week, I'm probably smoking maybe 3 Cubans a week. I don't tend to smoke. I don't tend to smoke a lot of Cubans anymore. All the stuff that I find to be interesting is almost always the newer regional releases and the limiteds, but I'm not willing to chase them or pay for them the way other people are that are much more serious about their Cuban cigar collections.
As you described, it's a chase.
Yeah, it's too much. And
Yeah.
so most of those that I end up getting is by the grace of friends. You know what I mean? They'll like, oh, hey, I got the brand new whatever. Let me send you a couple Saka. Hey, here's something I think you ought to try. And that's the way I get most of those because I just refuse to chase cigars. I'm just not doing it. I'm too old. Um, my mind is never blown anymore. So why am I going to go through all the work and all the expense to think, okay, that was a really good cigar. That was nice. You know what I mean? It's not worth it to me. And now with our friends in Asia, just totally fucking up the entire market. It's just, I mean, it's just gotten beyond. And anybody I mean, this is Beirut, right? So you guys know exactly what I'm talking about.
Exactly.
I mean, these Asians have just totally they've gutted the market. They've driven the
They
price up
empty
on
the market.
everything. They just, and look, God bless you for the Habanos retailers out there in the world, because if it wasn't for the Asians, they'd be in real trouble right now.
Yeah.
The
You
Asian
think so?
consumer, the Asian consumer is keeping Habanos alive at this point. That's just what it is.
We'll come to this, Saka. There
Mhm.
is a good question about that because you made prediction a couple of years back. We'll come to this. We'll
Okay.
come. I have a question. Do you think people are smoking your cigars because of other company cigars? In other words, to make it clear, are you what Liga Privada made you, Saka?
Look, having the pedigree of doing certain things in the past, that doesn't leave me. And I was really proud of what we did with Liga Privada. I thought it was an exceptional cigar. I thought it was one of the best cigars. I think it was one of the best cigars introduced in the century. I really do. I think it was one of those top 50 world class kind of cigars. Um, so I mean, I don't personally sell my cigars based on that. In other words, I never say, well, I'm the creator of Liga Privada. I made the hottest cigar in America for 2012 and 2013. I mean, that's not my sales pitch, because I can't take credit for Liga Privada now. I haven't been hands-on with the factory since oh God, when would that have been? February of 2013. So I can't really, other than creating the brand and the concept, I can't take any credit for what's currently in the boxes, good or bad. If they're
Good
exceptional, I
order.
deserve no credit. If they suck, I deserve no credit. If they're in between, I deserve no credit. So for me, the past is the past. And you're only going to be judged by what you're currently doing. So I don't really think about it in those terms, but at the same time, I'm not such an idiot that I don't know that my affiliation with the success of that has helped me with what I'm currently doing. And I do know that there are some retailers out there that use that as kind of like, well, if you like Liga Privada, you really ought to try Mi Querida. I know that there are retailers that do that all the time, but it's not something that I encourage them to do. But I have no control over what other people say. But yes, I do derive a benefit from that. There's no doubt about it.
You stopped smoking Liga Privada, you said, since 2013?
Yeah, I stopped smoking any Liga Privadas that were made after February 2013. So I still
What
occasionally
that makes
smoke one.
you, Saka? What that
Well,
makes you? A busy man, a
no, no,
bitter rival,
no.
or a
Why
better
I did,
smoker? What does it?
I'll tell you the reason why I did that, because look, up until I left the company, the cigar was my cigar. Okay, many people worked on it, but I was the creator of it. It was being
Yeah.
blended
Point.
specifically for me. I was the El Jefe on the band. We sold it as, oh, it's the cigar that the president of our company smokes. I was very closely associated. Now, once I left and I got it bought out, it's in their best interest to not closely associate it with me. So they've done everything to move away from that story. And I don't blame them, because I would do everything to move away from that story also. And to be honest with you, it's good for me too, because I don't really want to be judged on Liga Privada, because I'm not really working on Liga Privada anymore. So I don't have any credit for it in any way whatsoever at this point. So it makes sense for them to move away from the story. It makes sense for me to move away from the story. but can't change the facts. History is history. Okay, it just is what it is. The problem is people are always, they've slowed down, but for really the first 4 or 5 years, yeah, really, everybody always asks, oh, what do you think of Liga Privada? Have you seen Liga Privada? Blah, blah, blah. They want my opinion about Liga Privada. And the thing is, it's a very difficult thing because I'm known for being blunt. So if I smoke it and I think they're as good or better, and I say they're good or better, then they look at me
You'll
like
fire
I'm
at
just
me.
full of shit, right? Because if someone's asking me what I think, they already think it isn't as good. You know what I mean? That's why they're asking. They wouldn't ask me if they
Exactly.
thought it was as good or better. They're asking because they don't think it's as good. And what they want me to do is they want me to reaffirm their opinion that it isn't as good. So if I say it's better, they look at me like I have two heads. If I say, oh, no, it isn't as good, then it just feels kind of sour grapey to me that, oh, what? They can't make a great cigar now that I left the company, which simply isn't true. There's really no reason for Liga Privadas to not be as good. All of the key players that are at the factory level are still there. Yesenia's there, Rubio's there, all of these people, Marlon's there. So these people are all there. I just don't really want to be involved in the conversation because there's no plus or minus to me either way. So the simplest solution was to say, hey, I'm never going to smoke a Liga Privada that was made after I was no longer in charge of the factory. So
Makes
therefore, I
sense.
can't have an opinion. You
Yeah.
know,
Makes
I
sense.
don't honestly know, and that saves me
Exactly.
from answering the question, and that's the reason why. So I did it completely out of personal, selfish reasons that I just don't want to engage in that. You know,
You're
because
right.
it's just
Absolutely right.
it's like,
Okay, now in one of your interviews, when asked about the developing trends in the cigar industry, you reply, and I quote, the expansion of Nicaraguan handmade cigar internationally has the potential to supplant or to supersede the Habana's dominance. End of
yes.
quote here. Are we there now? If not, how many years, if any?
All right, so are we there by numbers? We're getting really close on this number end of things.
Ah,
You know, Habanos, depending on any given year, has pretty much typically released somewhere between 75 million to as many as 100 million handmaids over the last 30 years,
yeah,
right?
85 averagely.
Right.
Yeah,
That was exactly what I was going to say. We're pretty much, we could count it as an 85 million average, right?
exactly.
Right now, Nicaragua is probably, and I don't know the exact numbers on this because they aren't kept the same way, but we're probably now shipping internationally well over 40 million cigars internationally.
Okay.
Um, and
Halfway there.
we're shipping more than another couple hundred million in the United States now. So I mean, Nicaragua already is making handmade wise greater than 3 times the number of handmaids than Cuba makes. Okay. The thing is, the reason why it isn't the quantity that makes me say that Nicaragua will supersede Cuba. What makes me say Nicaragua will supersede Cuba is the quality of the product that's coming out of Nicaragua and the fact that Nicaragua has embraced its own identity. Whereas everybody up until this point that was making cigars was always trying to copy whatever the Cubans did. Everything was about it being Cuban-esque. It was an old Cuban brand, but now it's made in the Dominican. Now it's made in Canary Islands. It was always kind of the same retread. Nicaragua, because the tobaccos that we get out of Nicaragua are so much stronger and more robust and heavier, it ends up actually creating an entirely different type of cigar. You know what I mean? It has its own unique flavor, just the same way as Cubans have their own unique flavor. I mean, if someone's in a room smoking Habanos, I know instantly because it has a very distinct kind of floral note to it that you don't get out of cigars made from tobaccos in other countries. And it's the same thing. Nicaragua has it's kind of created its own kind of genre of what it is. And it just happens that the current consumer market is migrating internationally towards stronger and more robust flavors. Okay, we
Yeah,
see that
true.
in the beers we're drinking, we see it in the spirits we're buying, we see it in even just the Indian food and the Mexican food and the other ethnic foods that we all eat. We're just eating things that are stronger, richer, more flavorful, more robust. And that's what Nicaraguan cigars are. They're all those things. And Cuba, on its very best day, they can't create strong cigars. They can create strong cigars for Cuban cigars, but they can't actually create really super strong cigars. It isn't the nature of their tobacco. No, I'm not saying that you can't 1,000 here, 2,000 there kind of thing. Yes, there's this, but an actual practical application purpose, Cuban cigars on a strength scale are going to be a 3 to a 5 on a 10-point scale. That's where Cuban cigars are going to be. And when you get into the limiteds and you get into the regionals, you sometimes push up to a 7. You know what I mean? And so the current generation is interested in more robust things. And the current generation is also interested in what they see on social media. And well, no offense to my friends, the Cubans, but they suck at branding. I mean, they haven't made a new brand since when we had the release of San Cristobal, Trinidad, and Vegas Rabana. We had a line extension with
That's
Cohiba
99,
Bahibi.
1999,
Right,
the
right.
last
So
one.
what are they? So what are they giving their Cuban consumers to look forward to? Just the regionals and just the limiteds that cost so much money that you got to know someone who knows someone to even have a shot in hell of getting. So it basically gets those guys, the average cigar guy internationally, he doesn't even get to try any of the new, sexy, enjoyable stuff. He gets the same crap that's been on his shelf for the last 20, 30 decades. You know what I mean? So if you're interested in new and different tobaccos and all of these type of things that we're doing, you have to come to Smoke Nicaraguan. And that's what we're seeing. We're seeing this generation of consumers. And when I say generation, I'm talking 25 to 40-year-old, 45-year-old guys. They're really getting into the quote unquote new world cigars. And internationally, they have the ability to compare them head to head. They're on the same shelves. So, I mean, they don't have the Cuban mystique that we have in America. And to be honest with you, I think the Cuban mystique even in America has kind of worn itself out a bit, because the reality is you can get Cuban cigars in America. Anybody with an internet account can get cigars shipped to their door. There's plenty of perfectly legit Habanos vendors worldwide that will send you cigars. So if you want to smoke Cuban cigars, heck, you can smoke them. So I think now that we're getting this much more level playing field where everybody is trying everything and everybody has access to everything, I think that the current group of consumers are migrating more towards the stronger, more robust flavors. And I think that the Cuban branding is really just kind of in the past. So I believe that under the current scenario, there will become a time where Nicaraguan cigars will be the most prized cigars. Now, when do they take the status of the luxury part that Cuba has? I don't know, man. That's going to be a tough one. I
It's
don't even,
hard to tell, huh?
yeah, I don't even know if that's possible in 40 more years to take
40.
that, yeah, to
You
take that
said 40.
mantle. Yeah, the 40. Look, sales wise, we're going to kick their asses. Consumer wise, we're going to kick their asses. You know what I mean? There's going to be way more people smoking Nicaraguan cigars and thinking Nicaraguan cigars are better. But if we're talking about taking away the cachet of the luxury model, that's not easy to do, because at least with Habanos, you really have one marketing company that's doing everything. Where, look, we have, as much as we have Sin Compromiso, we also have really shitty, crappy $1 Nicaraguan cigars. You know what I mean?
Exactly.
So you don't have the same unified kind of message that you have when you're Habanos and you're selling this message and this viewpoint and this luxury. That's not the way it works for us. So I think overcoming that perception thing from the luxury point of view will always be difficult as an entire brand. But Nicaraguan cigars on the whole, I think they're already kicking everyone's ass. and the numbers seem to prove it. And like I said earlier, God bless the Asian market, because those guys would be in real trouble if it wasn't for them.
Exactly.
Huge statement, Saka. I love what you just said. I love. I mean, you're reasonable.
Logical.
You still have your feet on the ground. I mean, when it comes to read the future a bit. Very nice statement. I have a series of small questions, maybe to lighten up the atmosphere. If you are to be an unbiased aficionado and you are to recommend one cigar of the following two,
Okay.
Fuente Hemingway signature, and I heard you once, you said you like the cigar. It's a cigar that stood the test of time, or a Sobremesa Cervantes Fino. Which one truly, honestly, would you recommend and why?
I would recommend to the average consumer to do the Fuente. And the reason why is the Fuente is a classic example. It's probably one of the pinnacle examples of a Cameroon wrapped cigar. So if you want to know what a Cameroon wrapped cigar should be blended like, should taste like, what that genre is about, I think that Hemingway signature kind of serves as an iconic smoke that kind of defines a certain class of cigars. Personally, today, I'd rather smoke the Cervantes Fino. It has a little bit more body. It has a little bit more oomph. But if I was trying to tell a consumer if they had to smoke just one of the two, which one is the more important to smoke, I think the Hemingway is more important to smoke than the Cervantes Fino.
I hate to say,
You disappoint him.
No, the contrary. He rocks me.
Yeah.
I was like,
Look, the Cervantes Fino is one of my favorite sobremesas. It's in a size format that doesn't get a lot of love. It's kind of I tend to make like these series of thicker Lonsdales. And remember, everything's become bastardized with size. Once we got into the 60 ring gauge and the up, everything looks so much different. In other words, look, a Cuban classic double Corona is a 7x49. A 49 today doesn't even count as a Churchill in the American market. You know what I mean? So all the sizes have gotten a little whacked. So whereas I always loved that, 6x43, 6x44, I tend to actually like it better in like a 6x46 and a 6x48. So I make a lot of cigars that kind of fall into that. I don't know, you want to call it a short Churchill, you want to call it I call it a thick Lonsdale more times than not. You know what I mean? But those are proportions that really work for me. So I think the Cervantes Fino is one of the very best of the Sobremesa, along with the Elegante and Cedros. But I also don't think that Cervantes Fino has made as much of an important difference, not even close, to the marketplace that the Hemingway has. Like I said, the Hemingway was kind of a watershed cigar. There's certain watershed cigars, like Padron Anniversary was a watershed cigar. Liga Privada number 9 and Toro was a watershed cigar. Hoy de Nicaragua Antaños from the year 2000. They kind of set that mark for what, a Nicaraguan puro, super ballsy, unbiased, unabashed, really not a lot of skill in the blending or the nuance. It was just kind of like, here you go. Here's Nicaragua unbridled. And you see these cigars that kind of set the bar or the mark. You could say the same thing of like, I think that for like Pepin with like La Bijou kind of set a mark on what peppery meant. Pete Johnson's kind of set that mark with the Twae. And so there's certain cigars that I think everybody should smoke a Davidoff White Label. I think everyone should smoke a Double R. I think it's something that everybody needs to have the experience of. Personally, I find it boring as fuck today. Okay. I don't find it to be all that appealing. But there was a point in my life where, I used to smoke quite a few of those white label cigars. And, they kind of set they kind of set a mark for what, you know, that quintessential Dominican shade wrap mild cigar was supposed to be like, you know? And so I think there's some cigars that are just, they're important to smoke, even if they don't necessarily suit your fancy.
Yeah.
We have room for a few more questions, right, Saka?
Yeah, whatever. I'm here.
Okay.
Okay. You have a new project in the pipeline, the project DTT EX38, a 5 by 46, the Parejo pigtail. You've been
Right,
working on since 2016, a
right,
rarely grown leaf of Costa Rican moron. Would
right.
you please tell us about it?
Yeah, it's just, it's a dead blend. It was something that I was working on. I was, look, you're always trying to find things that are unique and different. There's not a lot of people that use the Moron Capa. So I was trying to create a line based around that particular tobacco. Um, I played around with it a lot. I made a gazillion samples. I got to sample number
38.
38. Yeah, I got to
Yeah.
38 and I just decided to stop because I just wasn't feeling it. It wasn't the cigar wasn't good. It just, is it good enough that it's different enough? Is there a purpose behind it? You know, who's the consumer for it? Is it going to take away from a guy that's currently smoking another one of my brands? Well, there's no benefit to doing that. I mean, if I want to introduce something new, I want it to take away from somebody that's smoking another brand, you know? So I just never really thought much about it. And then Abe at the last minute, he said he needed something special for limited edition. We were obviously in the COVID year last year, so I wasn't making a lot of new brand blends in 2020. So I just kind of dusted off the book and said, okay, I had this, it didn't suck, just never finished it. Well, here you go. Here's something unique. Here's something different, something you probably haven't tried before. Give it a whirl. And that's how it
Uh,
came to be. There's no, I have no intention. I mean, I made some extra ones after because they sold out so quick, and there were a lot of people that were upset. And I was kind of like, look, just tell me how many we need, and I'll make more. So I'm making those, but I don't, I don't see there being a future for the EX38. I don't see me making it into a brand. I don't see me making it into a regular occurring thing. It was this one dopey little thing for the Great Smoke, and then a little bit more dopiness after the Great Smoke for the people that missed out. But I don't think it becomes anything. I mean, you also gotta be careful. You can't. I already have a lot of products. I already have a lot of brands. I can't just keep adding more and more and more. I mean, I need the market to kind of catch up. And there's a lot of consumers that, even though I launched regular Sober Mason in 2015, there's a lot of people that are trying it for the very first time here in 2021. That's 6 years in the marketplace, and it's their very first experience with it. So I also have to be careful not to step on my own dick and, you know, just constantly be reinventing the wheel when in the end, you're actually rewarded for consistency. Because anybody can make something that's really good in a moment. The question is, how do you make something good year after year after year after year? That's the real challenge. And that's also how you ultimately become successful in our business, is when
yeah.
you have a Padron anniversary, when you have, you know, a Liga Privada, when you have a Monte Cristo, when you have a Romeo and Julieta. You know, I mean, you do not become successful by constantly just churning and burning and throwing stuff at the wall, hoping something's going to stick.
One gentleman from the audience asking, do you have a cigar coming called Woodchuck?
If I do, I got to
No?
sell it to Abe. It's a dumb thing. Again, this is the type of stuff that retailers love, but I just don't
Okay.
give a flip about, you know, because for him, I had this stupid thing with a woodchuck last year, but I don't want to get into the woodchuck story. But of course, a retailer sees it as a marketing opportunity to sell an extra whatever, a few thousand cigars. So if I ever make a woodchuck, Abe will sell a woodchuck, but I don't see there being any future in making a cigar called a woodchuck either. It's kind of a little exercise in marketing masturbation. Because do you see someone, do you see anyone buying a box of woodchucks 10 years from now? Do you see someone open their humidor and going, oh, and I've got this box of woodchucks from 2021 that, you know what I mean? It's just like, really? Seriously? I mean, no, it doesn't happen. So, you know, those quirky little things are good, but they can never become, you can never treat them like they're more important than what they really are. Because once you start living on those little quirky, nonsensical things, you're doomed. Because that's not how it works. The way it works is by people buying Mi Querida and Sobremesa and Sin Compromiso and adding it to their rotation so that every time they smoke, you know, whatever, every 5, 6, 7 cigars, one of those cigars are yours, or, you know, God willing that they like your brand enough that they buy an entire box of Sin Compromiso and they smoke through the box. And when they get to the bottom 1 or 2, they go, oh, I like those Sin Compromiso number 5 so much. I got to buy another box of Sin Compromiso number 5s because I've always got to have it. That's the way that you ultimately are successful in our business. You're not successful on whatever got all your blogger love and all of your #1 ratings in any given year. Yeah, because the new shit, it comes and it goes all the time, man. I mean, and I don't even know if the average consumer can list 10 brands that were launched new 3 years ago that are still selling well on the shelf. I know off the top of my head, I don't think I can list 3. And I'm in this business. You know what I mean? That's how quickly they come and how quickly they're forgotten.
They go.
They come and they go. So the question is, why is it? Is it because they weren't worthy of it in the first place? A lot of times they aren't. Because these companies know that this stuff comes and goes so quickly, why put the effort into it? And the consumer's just going to move on.
What is the Saka squash?
The message behind
Saka squash.
another question by our audience. What is the message behind Saka squash?
So when I was an exec at JR Cigar, it was located in Whippany, New Jersey. I never moved. That was where corporate was. I never moved there. I still lived in New Hampshire. So when I was not out of the country and I was in the country, I would go to work from New Hampshire to New Jersey every week. I had a corporate townhome that I would stay in. I would drive back on a Friday night to go home. It's about a 5-hour drive with no traffic, 5.5. One day I got in the truck. I realized I left my cigars back in the office, but I was already like 45 minutes north. So I wasn't going to turn around and drive 45 minutes the wrong direction to pick up cigars. At the same time, I wasn't going to drive for another 5+ hours and not smoke cigars. That's not happening. So just, you know, use my phone, Google, Yelp, Yahoo. I don't even remember what it was. This was like early 2000. Found a cigar store. Went to the cigar store. My plan was to go in, buy 3-4 cigars, leave so I can smoke cigars in my truck on the way up. Walk in the store owner sees me there. He goes, oh my God, Steve Saka. He's in my cigar store. It's like seeing Sasquatch. Because I rarely spend any time in cigar stores. It's just not something that I do. I didn't do it then. I don't do it today. And so I ended up buying a few cigars, and I ended up sitting there hanging out with his guys, smoking a cigar before I went on my way to drive the rest of the way north. And I kind of got in this habit that every 3 weeks or so, 4 weeks, I would stop at that cigar store and I would smoke one cigar with the people that were there, his regulars in the lounge, and we would just, you know, talk sports, talk tobacco, talk cigars, talk bullshit, whatever. And they just started calling me Saka Squatch. That was a nickname that they gave me from what the owner said. And that's where the nickname came from, Saka Squatch. It was from that little store in New Jersey back in 2000, 2001.
Another question. I'm sorry. I'm taking the audience questions. One of them called you the Fidel Castro of the Nicaraguan cigars. I think he meant that you're colonizing factories, plantation, but you never own them. I think I think that's what he meant.
Maybe, I don't know. Here's the thing. I had this conversation, actually, I was just in Nica for the last week or so. And I was actually having this conversation with Juan Martinez, and he goes, because he's like, you know, we need to put more infrastructure in for me in their factory because I'm doing so much now that I'm actually become a sizable amount of what their production is. You know what I mean? I'm not like the average job client that they're just making cigars for. And he's like, you really ought to just set up your own factory at this point. We're making so many cigars. I'm like, well, it's not that. It's just, I don't want to live in Nicaragua. I can't run a factory if I don't live here at least 3 weeks a year or 3 weeks a month. That would be the minimum. That's what it takes. And I have no interest in living in a third world country at this point in my life. I just don't. I have no delusions of grandeur. Now, does that mean that eventually I might open a little fabriquita? I might. But honestly, the only reason I'll do it is because I get pushed into it. I really don't want to do it. I much rather have my little groups of people doing what they're supposed to be doing in a much larger factory because you get a lot of benefits from being in that large scale operation. As long as they basically allow you to operate your production somewhat autonomous of their production and to do things a little different. But the truth is they are if you're willing to pay them for it. Now, if you want to be cheap and you want to get a great price, then they're not going to do that for you. But if you're willing to compensate them for it, they're more than happy to do that for you. Well, I shouldn't say more than happy. Some are better than others. But the two partners that I work with have proven to be very good. So it's one of those things where I don't mind owning the cow, but my problem is I don't want to be the cowboy that has to herd the cow. And I just don't. And that would mean that I would have to then take on a partner in Nicaragua. And part of why I started the new thing is because I really am tired of partners. All partners suck. They really do. Even when they're great partners, eventually they suck. Because we're individuals and we have different ideas. And, you know, I can tell you right now, if I had a partner right now, they would be upset with me that I'm growing the company too slow.
Well, I'm sure they will.
They would be, because the truth is we could do twice as much business than we're currently doing right now.
What's the volume of your business now, Saka?
Right now we're gonna probably do right around this year, probably about 1.6 million cigars is about where we're at. But we're making 1.6 million cigars, and most of the cigars that I'm making are all the super tippy top shelf style cigars. So I'm getting paid considerably more. I'm paying more for them. I'm paying more for the tobacco, but I'm also earning a disproportionate amount of higher income for that amount of cigars. Well, maybe not income, but gross sales. Maybe not net income, but gross I definitely am. So, I think that this year, I don't know, we won't do 10 million in sales this year, but I don't think that 10 million is all that far off in the distance, to be honest with you. I think we can get there.
I didn't get that. You will do 10 million?
No, I don't believe that we will do 10 million.
I'm sorry.
This year, but I think that we will in the relative near future.
Okay.
I think we could do 10 million this year, but that would mean that I'd have to take all the barriers off and then start becoming aggressive. And I just don't really see the point in doing that. What's the point in, look, we're in a great position now where we don't really sell a lot of cigars. Most of the cigars that are being purchased, they're just kind of being bought automatically. It's the retailers actually driving the sales, and it's not us driving the sales. With most companies, every month they have some sort of deal, some sort of discount, something to try to incentivize the retailers to buy something. We haven't done a single thing since TPE in 2020. So that's back in January, early February. So we haven't given a single penny off since last February. So over a year. of just, this is the price, this is what it is, you know, and it seems to be selling. So
Yeah.
why rush to make a lot more cigars and then have to figure out how to sell them? I don't want to
Exactly.
necessarily also undermake cigars either. That isn't my goal either. I don't want to artificially make them not available. Um, but so, I mean, we are making more consistently. But if we want to get really aggressive, I have enough tobacco. I could easily make another million extra cigars beyond what I am making. And I think we probably could sell them all.
So
But for what
something around
purpose?
2.5 million.
Yeah, I think we could. I think we could do 2.5 million cigars, which would basically end up getting us over 10 million in sales. But why? For what purpose? For who?
Mhm.
I don't have any board holders. I have no shareholders. I have no partner other than my wife. You know. So
How many
what
are you
what?
at Dumperton?
Well, directly there's
5,000?
eight.
One
No,
500?
directly we are
Five.
eight people. Eight people directly, and then I have approximately in Nicaragua, there's probably about 100 people right now that are working pretty much just full time on my stuff. About 100 people. So, but again, they're working for Hoya, they're working for Noxa, they're working for Pedro Vargas, they're working for Fredman, they're working for, you know, for Prosenixa, you know, because we have our own palones. We have our own boxes. We have some fields that we don't own the land, but we're really co-opting the entire crop that's on the land. We have a lot of these things going on, which is really unusual for most small companies. They wouldn't be involved in those type of things, you know. But that's what I have to do if I want to have something different, something unique, something that there's a reason for the consumer to try it and to smoke it.
One of the audience question, one of our friend actually, he's asking, isn't it time to think abroad? You're two American narrowed brands. We're worried about the Middle East. And what do you think when we have in Lebanon? I think there is Saka cigars, your cigars in Dubai,
I have
but we
no
don't see them
idea.
in other Arab countries. Is it
Well, I'd say
about
that
time?
no, it isn't at all. So for me, I don't care. This is the part that I don't think people understand. It's not that I don't want my cigars in those countries, but I don't care that they're in those countries. So I'm not willing to jump through hoops to make them be there. I'm not willing to give the distributors the discounts that they want. I'm not willing to give them the free marketing goods that they want to sell those cigars there. I'm not willing to give them their little paid junket vacation to come spend, 10 days in Nicaragua, with me playing chaperone and guide. Because the truth is, I don't really give a fuck if somebody from wherever smokes one of my cigars. It doesn't matter to me. So, and the international market is very disjointed and it's very confusing. And it's not like you're dealing directly with the retailers. And every country has its own rules, its own paperwork, its own tax stamps, its own filings. Really, doing business with the vast majority of the world is a pain in the ass when it comes to tobacco. So, my thing is, Hoya Nicaragua does all my international. And whatever they decide to do, whoever they decide to open, they do it. I don't care about it. I'm not getting involved in it because, as far as I'm concerned, if it was left to me, I wouldn't be doing any of it right now. I still got a long way to go to growing the company in the United States. And the United States market is worth, I mean, just volume wise, the US market is 3 times larger than the entire rest of the world put together. And I only have to deal with one set of bullshit rules and one set of taxes and one set of FDA and one set of all that. So why do I want to go through all of these things so my cigars can be in Dubai? Why do I give a fuck if my cigars are in Dubai or not? I don't care. And my attitude is just the same way as I, as a U.S. consumer, had to buy Cuban cigars illegally through mail order. Well, a lot of international customers that don't want Cuban cigars, they do the exact same thing. And there's plenty of reputable U.S. retailers that are happy to ship you cigars. So the way it works for me internationally is if someone wants to bring our cigars to their country, they talk to Hoya to Nicaragua, and if the deal makes sense with them, fine. And then what I get is I just get a royalty. But they get that with the promise of them getting absolutely nothing from me. They're getting no support. They're getting no marketing material. They're getting no samples. They're getting no deal. You're getting nothing. And I always
no vacation.
Right. And I always try to discourage them because I think it's premature, honestly, for my cigars to be sold internationally. I don't think it's quite there yet. I think that probably it's going to be another 10, 15 years. Now, I have certain international distributors that prove me wrong, and they seem to be doing very well with the product, and God bless, I'm happy for them. But at the same time, I'm just not going to chase those international sales. I mean, look, I live in the crappy state of New Hampshire, right? The state of New Hampshire is literally worth more than all of the European Union for cigar sales.
Interesting.
Well, just the state of New Hampshire.
Good point. Good
So
point.
why am I going to go? And the other thing too is, and this is also, boy, I'm going to get in trouble with this one. Cigars cost reasonable prices in the United States. Okay, you can be a typical guy, have an honest job, and afford to smoke cigars. When you live in a lot of these foreign countries, the way the distribution of the taxes work out, you have to be really rich to smoke cigars on the regular. There's just no way around it. You've got to be wealthy, right? And, you know, in certain countries, some of the places you go to, dealing with just that wealthy class that smokes cigars are kind of dicks. They don't really even enjoy interacting. You know what I mean? It's one thing when there's the few rich guys in the room, but when it's nothing but that whole upper crust, aristocratics, high society class, and I don't like even hanging out with those people. So why the fuck do I care about chasing sales in places like Switzerland? You know, which amazingly we're doing great in Switzerland. So God bless the Swiss because we sell a ton of Sin Compromiso to Davidoff in Switzerland. But I mean, it's just not something I'm willing to chase. So it's kind of whatever sales come. And if there's a distributor in a foreign country that thinks that they can sell my crap, then contact Hoya Nicaragua. And heck, if you're not a total douchebag and we don't know that you're a crook, chances are they're probably going to agree to let you try, and you go from there. But it's the same in the U.S. We don't actually try to open stores here either. We kind of wait until the store contacts us. It's just better that way. Because what am I going to say? My cigars are the best ever. My cigars sell great. You really have to have them on your shelves. Well, isn't that what every single cigar company says? It's the same bullshit over and over again. The reality is retailers don't really even care what's on their shelves. Retailers care about what turns, what sells, and what repeat sells. And so for me, it's better to wait until the retailer has made in their own minds the decision that they think our brands make sense for them on their shelves. Because then they've got some sort of vested interest in it other than me with my, oh, they're the best thing ever, and oh, they sell amazing, and oh, you got to have them. You know what I mean? It's much better for them to be like, yeah, man, we got like 6-7 people that keep coming in here and annoying me that they want Umbagard or they want something. What is that thing called? Blessed or something or other. Send me the price list. Because the truth is, these retailers don't want to carry new cigars on their shelves either. You know what I mean? They kind of get forced into doing it. So it's better to just wait until the consumer forces them to do it.
One question, Saka. A year ago, almost, when Cigar Aficionado releases their top 25 cigar of the year.
Yes.
And you send a message to your supporters and fans on one of the Facebook, I think, groups. And you ask them not to attack Cigar Aficionado. You congratulated Ipicarillo. You said how fantastic is his cigar. And you revealed a gentleman agreement between you and Cigar Aficionado. If they won't talk bad about you, you don't talk bad about them. I sent a reply through a friend, Ziad Salibi. I don't know if the name rings a bell to you. He has few retail cigar shops in Houston. And I told him, well, I appreciate the side of Saka on this deal, on this gentleman agreement, but I don't understand Cigar Aficionado's point of view. What the message are they sending? I mean, they're excluding people for personal reason, for character clash. What integrity are they shouting here? What are they trying to say?
But isn't that a question more for them than for me? How am I supposed to answer that question?
I know you're a man of honor.
I can just answer from my own perspective that, look, this is where things are a little weird. So like most people on my side of the business, the New World side, all they do is bash Cuban cigars. You guys know that. I don't do that. I think there's some great ones. I think there's some sucky ones. I wish they were more consistent. I wish there was a little bit more diversity. I wish the limiteds didn't only go to the Ritzy Ritz. I wish a lot of things. But I don't have that attitude that all Cuban cigars suck and all non-Cuban cigars are great. I don't have that attitude. Same thing when it comes to Cigar Aficionado. Most people, it's very easy to dump on and to bash Cigar Aficionado. And particularly me being kind of that redneck kind of guy, it's even probably easier for me because I'm not part of that class of people. They're probably the subscribers to Cigar Aficionado, you know. But at the same time, I recognize the fact that they did something in an industry that was dying. They really helped to revive it. Had they not come along in, end of 93, 94, I don't know where the hands-to-gauge cigar market would be today. It was all moving to kind of commodity and price only, and the quality of everything was getting worse and worse, and there was no development and there was no innovation whatsoever. And Cigar Aficionado getting in and bringing a media spotlight to handmade cigars, it really set off a boom that ultimately ended up, the boom popped, but it also created a whole new group of cigar smokers that ended up making it part of their life rather than, everyone started because it was new and it was a fad, yada, yada, yada. But, for every 8 of those guys, 1 or 2 of them stuck around afterwards and said, wow, cigars, they have a place in my life. And they made it part of their life. So they provided a really good service to the industry as a whole. And they also were very educational to those consumers during the time. Look, the other problem that I think happens with every publication is you feel as though you've covered everything. So why to cover it again? I would argue that they could republish articles that they were writing in the mid-90s and their consumers would be ecstatic to read them because their consumers never saw that conversation back in 94 and 95 when they would write some of the more basic stuff. Because there's a whole group of new consumers today that are just fucking clueless when it comes to cigars. And they're getting all of their thing off the internet. And even though Cigar Aficionado never got everything perfect, they did a pretty good job. You know what I mean? There's a lot in those articles. And so I'm not anti-Cigar Aficionado. And I'm not anti their top lists. But at the same time, I also understand that these days have passed. Magazines have become irrelevant. If they don't realize they're irrelevant, they soon will realize they're irrelevant because the younger generation doesn't read anything in a magazine. They read everything on their tablet. They read everything on their computer. They read everything on their phone. That's the way information is done. And the other thing too is I think the value in traditional advertising is like almost zero. I think we as consumers have been so over advertised to starting from about, the 30s on, that we all have blinders to all of it. So I don't think it matters what's on an advertising page. Very rarely do we see something advertised in anything that catches our eye, that makes us go, oh, I need to check that out. I mean, think about it. We see how many? We see 1,000, 2,000 ads for every ad that actually goes, oh, I'm actually going to go look at that. You know what I mean? So I think the value of that has gone tremendously down. And I don't believe that they set the market the way they used to set the market. If they said something was the #1 cigar back in 1995, it basically made that entire company successful. Now, you're in that top 25 list, the only person that gets any benefit is the person that gets #1. None of the others even get remembered. And even the #1 doesn't get the guaranteed success. I mean, I don't think Ernesto Perez Carrillo did really that well with Encore. I think he got a nice pop out of it, but in the end, the cigar had to speak for itself. Now, Ernesto, you're my friend. I love you, but I felt bad when he got #1 on Encore. Why? Because I felt like had he gotten #1 on La Historia, it would have actually served him better. Because I thought Encore was a little bit of a polarizing blend. I could see less people liking the Encore blend than they would have liked the La Historia blend. So I wish he had gotten it on La Historia instead of on Encore. Now he got it on the new one. I like it better on the new one. I think that's one that more consumers are going to find. I think they're going to find it serves as more of a bridge to potentially smoking others of his cigars. So hopefully that'll do well. So for me, I don't really look at Cigar Aficionado. I think they do a good job. I got no ill will against them, but I don't think any magazines are relevant anymore. And I'm almost to the point that I'm not even sure that because of the diversity of the number of bloggers and ratings and websites, they all kind of dilute one another too. You know what I mean? I think that I think you as an individual company are more in control of your own message than you've ever been before. And I don't know why I would want to rely on third parties who really are not. What vested interest do they have in any way whatsoever? And also, I find it arbitrary. I mean, like I've done really well rating-wise. I mean, it's one of the reasons why I like the consensus list. Because the consensus list takes all the top lists from all the bloggers, all the magazines, all the YouTubers, and they just average it all together. And I think that gives you a better snapshot as to what's really happening than any one individual list. Because the other thing too is every list is inherently biased. I mean, there's some lists I look at and go, wow, I see these top 10 cigars on it. You know what? I can see 5 of those cigars being in the top 10 for the year. I can see why someone likes that. I read other lists, I'm like, what the fuck is this guy smoking? This is like the shittiest list of top 10 cigars ever. These suck. You know what I mean? But the funny part is the list I think sucks. Somebody else might think is the greatest list on the planet. So it always goes back to the same. So yes, from my perspective, I'm indifferent to all media. And I don't mean it in a negative way, but I also I just don't think it has the same relevance or the importance that it used to have. And I particularly don't think that the published magazines have much of any at all. And so for me, it isn't a loss. Now, from their perspective, I don't know. You'd have to ask them that question. I mean, can you cover everything if you ignore one of the hottest brands in the country, one of the ones that's the fastest growing, one of the ones that's been Company of the Year consensus 4 years in a row? Yeah, to me, that doesn't seem right. But hey, I'm not the editor. I'm not the owner. It's their magazine. They can do whatever the fuck they want with it.
Exactly.
Actually, I wrote to them. I never get an answer.
Anyway, I have a question for you. In one of your interviews, You said the term rebrote.
Yeah, rebrote.
Yeah, the term rebrote, the procedure of rebrote. Are you with this kind of procedure with the plant?
No, I don't personally subscribe to it because I think it causes too much damage to the field to do
Exactly.
the rebrote. And for the benefit of those listening that don't know what rebrote is a way for us to get a second growth out of an existing crop to give us some higher, stronger materials, but we do them at the ground level. Basically, you prime the entire plant out, you strip it, and then what you end up doing is you end up breaking the stalk off about 6 to 8 inches off from the surface of the soil. And then what will end up happening is that plant will end up creating typically 2 or 3 offshoots. And from those 2 or 3 offshoots, little small leaves will start to form on those offshoots. And what we'll do is we'll break those offshoots off, and then we'll just focus on one of them. And we'll harvest another 2 to 3. They'll be really pequeño. They'll be like 6, maybe 8 inch long leaves, but they serve as a Lajero replacement. The thing is, it gives you a way to get more Lajero essentially out of a crop. But it also ends up meaning that you just end up stressing the soil that much more by asking it to produce this second growth across the board. This is the type of thing that farmers argue about. I personally don't do it because I don't think it's worth the question of whether it does damage a crop or not damage a crop. But also, I don't need that extra little bit. But if you have a limited amount of farming land and you're growing at a certain pace and you can only produce so much Lajero and you can't get any more Lajero, well, here's a way for you to add, a little tiny bit more. But it's marginal. You're talking about 2 to 3 extra leaves per plant. And you're talking about them being very small.
Yeah,
so,
I know. That's why also Carlito Fuente is totally against it.
Yeah. But it's easy to be against it when you aren't the guy that, hey, I own 8 manzanas. This is the only manzanas I have. I absolutely have to have more tobacco. I can't buy more tobacco. So therefore, this is something I can do to get me through my immediate. You know what I mean? Again, it's easy to be against things when you have choices. When you don't
when
have
you
choices,
have plenty of choices, right?
Right. When you don't have the choice, then maybe this is the solution to a near-term problem. But to do it on a repeat basis, I don't think it's particularly good for the fields, and I don't think it's particularly good for the crop. I think it takes too much out. I don't think it's worth the effort dollar-wise, but I understand why in a pinch why it's done.
Yeah.
A couple of questions. We'll open the comments, but
we're gonna open the comments now to see what we have from the followers audience.
I have an interesting question. If you were not Steve Saka, the cigar maker, would you still smoke 10 cigars a day?
Well, probably not, because being Steve Saka, the cigar maker, means I get to smoke wherever I am, right? So you have to figure, if I'm not Steve Saka, the cigar maker, what other jobs can you smoke cigars nonstop all day? I'd have to be a drug dealer. I'd have to be a pimp. I'd have to be, what else is there? I mean, there aren't a lot of gigs where you can smoke cigars every place all day long. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
I could be president of Exxon and I couldn't get away with smoking cigars in my office today. You know what I mean? So yeah, I mean, there's very few jobs that allow you to smoke 10 cigars a day. I can tell you that. So, but look, I never had any intention of getting in the cigar business, and I was smoking a lot of cigars before that. I can't imagine my life without smoking a lot of cigars. Now, I have noticed lately, I stay with the 10 number, but I've been keeping track, and I seem to be cutting back a little. I seem to have noticed recently I've been smoking about 7 cigars a day. So yeah, just recently I've just kind of started keeping track, and so but I seem to find myself 7. Now, look, I was in Nicaragua last week, so I was smoking 14 cigars a day. So those kind of 14, 15 cigars a day, easy. So that kind of offsets the numbers, but I have found, like today, where am I? So it's already 4 in the afternoon. Today, I've smoked 3 cigars.
Oh, well.
So the chances of me smoking another 7 between now and when I go to bed are probably not likely. You know what I
Yes, it's
mean?
not. Yeah.
Yeah.
So it probably won't happen. And
The thing we have in common, we are both engineers also. And
there,
we, at least I smoke a lot of cigars per day. So we have a lot of comments between us.
Did it help
yeah.
being an engineer to bring
Well, just so we're
Dunbarton
clear
to
on
be?
this, I was not an engineer. I owned an engineering company that employed engineers, but I
Okay.
myself have never actually been an engineer. So
Okay.
I'm a man of no education. Okay, so I'm not an engineer. Does that perspective help? It does kind of have a lot to do with the way I blend. I mean, I look at blending as a very systematic way. That whole throw darts at a ball, put this with that because I think it's going to be this way, boom, boom, boom. Yeah, in the beginning, there's a little bit of that romantic nonsense, but very, very quickly, I have a very, I have a very systematic way that I do all of the blending on my products at this point because I find it gets me to the end of the rainbow much quicker and without any doubts as to whether I'm heading the right direction or in most cases the wrong direction, that it gives me a chance to bail out. It's almost a little German the way I tend to approach blending now, and it works well for me. But
Nice.
yeah, it's
German.
just yeah. Well, I'm just constantly look. I have a generally when you have a blend, you're going to blend around one tobacco, or you're going to blend around an idea or a concept or a genre, and I'll typically come up with 4 or 5 just off the top of my head, some basic blends that I'll first make. But pretty much those first initial test blends, I almost always will just focus on one, and then I'll just start adjusting the one. And then I kind of treat it kind of like NCAA brackets, where I'm just constantly making refinements and I'm making the decision, okay, is 1, 2, or 3 better? Okay, 2 is better. How can I make 2 better? Let's try this, let's try that. Okay, so now I have 2A, B, and C. Is 2A, B, and C better? Well, 2C is the better one. Okay, so now what can I do to make 2C better? Make 3, 4 different things with 2C. And I just keep funneling and funneling and funneling until I'm either satisfied, I can't believe I can make it any better. And when I say I can't believe I can make it any better, sometimes that means that it never ends up in a box because I don't think it's good enough to go in a box. You know what I mean? But I do tend to kind of funnel my way down into final blends rather than just taking this kind of ad hoc approach of here's 10 different things in 10 different bags. Which do you like the best? You know what I mean? Oh, I wish it was a little stronger. Oh, I wish it was a little that. No, I I'm much more systematic in my approach. And what ends up happening is it lets me go through a lot of combinations very quickly, very fastly, and it lets me get to the end much quicker than the way I used to do it. I can get to a final if I have all the materials ready to go that I need to work with, I can get to a final blend within a few months. Whereas before it would just take me forever. It's too much experimentation, too much trial and error. But that also comes out of just experience. I don't have to do as much trial and error. I already kind of know this works well with this. This doesn't work well with that. These play well together. These things never play well together. This one always causes combustion problems with that problem. This one, the material is too thin. This material is thin. If I have both of them in the same cigar, I'm going to end up with too much compression. I'm going to have issues with the draw because of the texture of these 2 leaves being side by side. So I don't want those 2 leaves to be side by side in the blend. Even if they taste good, I know that they're going to give me mechanical problems when we get down to where we're actually producing cigars. And that's another thing that is a big part of what I think about is I'm not just thinking about how something tastes or how something smells, but I'm always thinking about how is it going to draw and how is it going to burn and how is it going to hold an ash and how is the retrohale going to be on it. I'm always thinking of those other items, not just, oh, that tastes damn good. People are going to like that. So,
If we have a question here. If you want to name one accomplishment in your life, what it will be?
What accomplishment? Huh. This is where you're supposed to say something sappy like your children, but honestly, that kind of wasn't a whole hell of a lot of work to make them, so I don't think that counts. Yeah, I don't. I don't feel that accomplished in my life, so I'm not really sure what to say is an accomplishment. All I feel like is I got a shit more stuff to do. I don't think I'm accomplished yet. No,
What?
In the process.
yeah. I mean, I'm just trying to think. You'd like to. I can come up with something sappy, but it's just bullshit. So I'm not a sappy guy, so that doesn't count. And business-wise, I don't think I've done anything that's really all that monumental, that's that unique. I don't know. I'm unaccomplished. I'm sticking with that. Unaccomplished.
Okay.
Good answer.
Good answer.
I just don't have one that I think is worth as a milestone.
Okay.
2 questions. What drove you to create Sobremesa Brûlée, and what cigar you didn't want to have in your cigars family?
The
Okay,
second question, I know the answer of it.
yeah, I mean, so first off, let me deal with the second question first. There's no cigar.
What drove you?
There's no cigar that I really don't want to be in the family, but I'm not a big fan of Lanceros. Everyone knows I'm not a big fan of Lanceros. So for me, that was just kind of an exercise in, okay, here it is. I'm done with it. You know, now leave me the hell alone. Let me
That's
move
why
on
you
with
name
my
it like
life.
this. Now leave it the
That's
hell
why,
alone.
right? That's why I named it like that. I'm just, look, I don't like to make cigars that I don't smoke. And I just rarely smoke Lanceros, so why am I making a Lancero? So that's kind of it. And there's other reasons why, but so the Lancero is the one that for me, but surprisingly enough, we sell a lot of that damn Lancero. I mean, it's probably, I don't think I'm bragging here. It may be the #1 selling Lancero in America.
Oh.
It
Is
really,
it?
yeah, because like most people make Lanceros and they make like 500 boxes and it's one time only and it takes them forever to sell. I mean, even a big company, a giant company doesn't make more than a couple thousand boxes. And even that's a stretch. They would normally make 1,000, a big company. They just don't sell. As much as the Lancero guys are loud and proud, they beat the drum. Nobody buys the fucking things. Nobody smokes the damn things. It's something that people talk about smoking. They talk about it. Now, am I saying there isn't like a few guys out there that are like really into Lanceros and they smoke them all the time? Of course there are. But as a general rule of thumb, Lancero is just a dead size. Just gets no traction at all.
It's hard
So
to roll also.
yeah, it's it's hard to roll, but that's not really the problem. For me, the problem is it's just boring. There's just not that much you can do with a Lancero. It's 2 filler tobaccos, it's a binder, it's a wrapper. You got no room to position anything. You got no room to
There isn't
backfill
much room
anything.
for
You got no,
creation.
it's like the most crude way of making a cigar blend. There's like no real skill set to it. If you gave a monkey 100 pounds of tobacco, he's going to make you a perfectly good Lancero eventually. It's just the way it's going to work. So, so now as far as Brulee was something that I always knew had to be in the portfolio. But there's certain basic cigars that every portfolio needs. Every portfolio needs kind of a medium body, nuanced, complex kind of cigar. For me, that's Sobremesa. Every cigar portfolio needs to have a stronger, earthy, kind of dark, more Maduro kind of cigar. For me, that's my Mi Querida line of cigars between Mi Querida, Tricky Traca, Old Magog. Every cigar line needs a mild shade cigar for the guy that wants to smoke those milder, lighter style cigars. I didn't have that. So Brulee was the one to fill in that pillar. And then the third pillar that you really need in any given line is you need something that's much more kind of spicy and peppery and a bit sharper and a bit more biting. I kind of touched that with Mi Querida Tricky Traca. I touch it with Todos Las Dias, but in a different way because Todos Las Dias is still very smooth, even though it's a lot of nicotine and a bit of oomph to it. I don't think that I currently have what I would consider to be a quintessential classic pepper bomb in the portfolio at this point. It's probably the one thing that the portfolio is like really, really like a glaring missing air. And it's not that I haven't made a bunch of different ones. It's just every time I make one, I'm like, okay, is this as good as, no, not as good as, is it better than something I can get from Papin Garcia? Is it better than this Tatuaje Black over here? Is there a reason for it to exist? You know what I mean? And I haven't hit upon a peppery blend that I thought really there was a reason for it to be in the marketplace that I could say, okay. I feel very confident that if you like Connecticut shade, mild to medium, creamy, sweet style cigars, that Brulee will hold its own against any in the market. I would argue that if it's not the best, it's in the top 5. Okay, that it's got a purpose. I would argue that Mi Querida, it goes head to head with any Connecticut broadleaf cigar in the market, whether it be the $18 Liga Privada, or whether it be Nicholas Melillo's Tabernacle, or whether it be any of the other Maduro cigars, Roma Craft. I think that Mi Querida holds its own, and there's a purpose for that cigar in the marketplace. You know, there's a reason for it to exist. I just haven't come up with something that's super peppery that, in my opinion, there's a reason for it to be there, other than it just be another peppery, spicy cigar. Now, that being said, this year's Muestra de Saka release is going to be one of these more pepper bomb style cigars. But I don't think it's going to be a pepper bomb style cigar that I could actually make into a whole brand, because I think it's going to be a little bit too much biting. You know, and again, you're not trying to sell cigars to those bloggers that are just so amped up on nicotine that everything has to be so strong for them to even think it's strong anymore, because they don't actually buy the cigars. You know, the average guy, one of the most important lessons I learned was from Frank Yanesa, Estella Padron. I was at the factory and I said, you know, the guy said to me, Stella said to me, remember, the most important thing always about making cigars is this. And he pounds his chest like this. So me, I'm young, right? What do I say? Heart, passion, right? Soul. It's like, no, fuck that bullshit. None of that matters. What I want is when a guy is smoking one of my cigars, that he's checking his breast pocket to make sure he has another one of those cigars. That he likes it and he finds it satisfying when he's smoking it, but it doesn't just totally knock him out or kick his face in or burn him out. That when he gets to the end of this one, he wants to grab another one out of his pocket, he wants to clip it, he wants to light it, he wants to smoke another one. So I always think in these terms. How repeatable are the cigars? Do they give someone that potato chip factor that makes you want to reach in the bag and just have another one? You know what I mean? And when you make those super strong, blow your head off style peppery cigars, they don't make you feel that way. These don't make me feel that way. They make me feel like, okay, I need to take a little break here, right? And when you got a guy that's smoking 10 cigars a day saying, oh, he needs to take a little break, that cigar's too fucking strong as far as I'm concerned. You know what I mean? For 99.9% of the market. So while a lot of times those cigars will get a lot of buzz and they'll get a lot of love from the people that rate and rank cigars, they don't typically translate to sales on the shelf, because that's not really what the average cigar smoker actually wants. So I'm always very cognizant that even with my strong cigars, that I always try to focus on them also being smooth. I don't want the cigar to bite me. You know what I mean?
Exactly.
I want it to be smooth. I want it to be enjoyable. I want it to be easy. I want there to be a sense of repeatable. I want it to bring tranquility to the smoker. And so that to me is a very important thing. And when you look at the brands that are really uber successful, Almost all of them kind of have that trait. Let me
Speaking
give
Right.
of speaking of repeatable cigars, are you willing to make more Dondurma?
Yeah, I make more Don Dharma every time we ask. The
Okay.
thing is that the problem
Dondurma
with
is
the
the name of the in Turkish for the ice cream.
right, it's for that wacky ice cream they have that they add the I think it's jalap gum to it. It's from a
Yeah,
plant, from a poppy almost. Suar. It's
exactly.
like a suar, right? And they add
I
it, and it
know.
makes the ice cream like taffy. It's a very strange ice cream. And
Do you still? Yeah.
that
Do you
blend,
still?
it was a very
Do
odd
you
blend.
talk Turkish? Do you still?
No, no, no. I know the number nine is Sakuz, and I know that the number 10 is Dokus, and that ends my Turkish right there. Number
That's
nine and
it.
number 10.
The
Yeah,
the cause.
yeah,
Yeah.
yeah. 9 and 10,
One of
Sakuz,
our
Dokus.
friend is asking you, and that's very debatable in this part of the world. How can you still maintain your great palate and you still smoke 10 cigars a day?
Well, that's a fair question. I mean, it's it's always relative. So, in other words, I know how cigars make me feel when they're right, even if my palate isn't completely fresh. Now, I will say this: I tend to smoke stuff that I'm working on early in the morning first. Okay, and I tend to smoke stuff at the end of the day that I don't really care as much about, or it's already an existing blend that I'm very familiar with. So I will
Okay.
normally start my day off with that. The other thing too is there's a big difference between smoking for work and smoking for enjoyment. So when I'm smoking for work, I'm taking very meticulous notes. I'm really focused on it. I'm drinking, room temperature sparkling water. I've got little water crackers there that have no salt on them. I tend to have roasted coffee beans to kind of inhale that coffee scent to kind of reset my oral factories to kind of get them to a different level. So there's a difference between when I'm smoking for work versus when I'm smoking just to smoke. Or if I'm smoking just like, if it's a question of, hey, is the Mickey Rita blend right or wrong? Well, I smoke so many Mickey Rita that I don't have to make that my first 3, 4 cigars a day to know exactly what it's supposed to taste like. So that one is different. But if it's something I have to focus on, I tend to do it earlier in the morning. Um, and again, it's easy when you don't worry about, I'm worried about my palate. So when I just have to worry about whether it makes me happy or not, it makes it a lot simpler. You know what I mean? I'm not having to worry about this whole thing, just the way cigars are reviewed first, third, second, third. That's just craziness to me. This whole concept of 8 million different flavors. It's not the way people that make cigars talk about cigars. It's not the way that people that grow tobacco talk about tobacco. We have a much more limited lexicon of adjectives and terms that we use to define what something is like. I don't begrudge the magazines. I don't begrudge the marketing weenies. You're all trying to come up with some different way to explain what is essentially weeds rolled up in a tube that we light on fire. They're all brown and round. I understand the challenge. It kind of lends itself to this. But I can say that on our end, we don't look at it in the same way. I mean, do every once in a while, do I get certain hints of certain flavors that I find unique? A little cinnamon, a little anise, these type of things. Yeah, I get those sensations, but those aren't the ones that are really relevant long term. Nobody smokes a cigar because it's anise flavor. Because if they liked anise flavored cigars, they would just smoke Avantes and be done with it, right?
Yeah.
I mean, you can smoke an Italian dry cure Avante or a Perotti, and I can't beat that anise. They got anise down in spades, man. So they got that locked in. So I think that I don't know. Maybe my palate's no good. Who knows? It doesn't
No,
matter.
you still
It's
have a
it,
great
it's
one.
it's kind of it's kind of like your penis, right? Does it make me happy? My penis makes me happy, so it's a perfect penis. And that's kind of the way I feel about my blends. My blends make me happy, so the blends are perfect.
To combine few questions, do you think really you still have the passion you had 20 years back? You have plans of retirement like soon, 10 years, in 20?
So do I have the passion? I do and I don't. I mean, there's no doubt that I'm a bit more jaded today than I was before. Okay. But at the same time, um, look, you know what my favorite thing is about the cigars? It's not even the sales are kind of, look, don't get me wrong. I need the sales. Thank you for the money. I really appreciate it. But I don't
We all
really get
do.
a buzz, right? I don't get a buzz out of sales. What is really cool is when someone like chooses one of your cigars to smoke for their 30th wedding anniversary, or they choose it to smoke for the birth of their granddaughter, or they choose it to smoke with their dad on his 80th birthday. I mean, that's a tremendous honor. So actually, those things those are the things that make me the happiest is when I see things like that, because I know that customer, that consumer, he could have chosen anything. He could have celebrated that special occasion with an Opus. Could have celebrated that special occasion with a Cohiba Siglo 6. But they chose to celebrate it with whatever, and it happened to be one of mine. That can't help but make you feel good. That's probably the biggest thing I get out of it now, is that. The other thing too is I like talking cigars. I like talking industry. I like talking tobacco. I like cigar smokers. So I don't think that part's changed. I think the part that I'm really struggling more than anything else with is because of the world becoming so much smaller with the way social media now works. How do I get to the point where I don't hate everybody? Because nobody will ever let me have more than 3 minutes of peace and quiet. I mean, my phone, just the number of messages is just so off the chart. It's like literally, if I left the notifications on my phone on, it literally would ding every 5 seconds for 24/7. It's relentless. And at one point, and you're happy because it means that you're relevant, and it means that they like the product, or they really hate the product, but they hate the product so much that they got to go out of their way to tell you how much you suck, which is just as good too, right? If someone's
Exactly.
passionate enough to go out of their way to tell you how much you suck, then you're really rubbing them the wrong way. So you're doing something right. And so for me, and look, and 99% of what I get is all good, but man, it's a lot. And I think that's the part that I'm struggling with right now is how do I balance that? Because I don't know how to balance it because there's just so many of you and there's just one fat me. You know what I mean? And
Three, excuse
it's
me,
a bit
three,
overwhelming.
three fat now,
Okay,
not one.
whatever, but I mean if you're thinking about I would say on an average day right now I'm definitely over 200 private messages between Facebook and Instagram. And that doesn't count just the regular public tags that you get, all the public notifications and mentions and hashtags. And that doesn't include email, and that doesn't include cell phone calls. And
Yeah.
that's the hard part is I'm not delusional. I know that the fact that I'm accessible is part of the reason why the brands are growing. I know that there's no better spokesperson for my brands than me. Okay. I may not be the prototypical spokesperson, but I represent my products the way I want them represented for both either good or bad. Um, so those parts are all good, and all the feedback is good. But it's the point now where there's just so much of it, it's just impossible to keep up with. And what do you do then when there's literally not there's just not even there's not even enough time in the day to read it all. You know what I mean? Like honestly, I had no clue that this was on Instagram. So like that's why I'm sending you a message like literally 3 minutes before, like, how am I supposed to log in? You know what I
Yeah.
mean? And let me say this, Eli, am I pronouncing it? You say it Eli, right? Am I pronouncing it correctly? Is
Again,
it Eli or Ellie? How do you say
Eli,
it?
Eli,
Eli.
Okay,
Eli.
so Ellie, you understand that you may have told me this answer, but you told me
Yeah,
this answer
couple of times.
literally 4,000 other people have told me something since you told me that answer. And I'm not exaggerating. That's how many people, because you're just, when you talk about 200, 250, 200 just in social media, you add the other 100 on top of that between texts and email and phone calls, you're talking about 300 people hitting you with something every single day. So that means every week there's like 2,400 new things. It's a lot. It really is. And that and therein lies my current biggest challenge is I don't want to become a hermit and not interact. But at the same time, it's got to the point that it's physically impossible to interact because there's just so much of it.
Understood.
And
Completely.
yeah, and that's my current biggest challenge that makes me a little jaded. Because some days you just feel like saying, fuck everybody, fuck the world. I wish everybody would just stop buying the fucking cigars. I just want to be left the fuck alone. You know what I mean? You have those days where things are going great and you're just
Maybe,
like,
maybe
enough
that will,
already.
maybe
Leave
that
me
will
the
be
fuck
the name.
alone.
Maybe that will be the name of your last cigar.
Yeah, maybe that'll be my last cigar. I'll be go fuck yourself. And that'll be how I leave the business. I mean, I don't know. Like I said, though, you got to be thankful for it, right? Because it's all good. It's what it is. I mean, please don't send me any more Sasquatch things. Do you not think that everybody has sent me every Sasquatch meme and video at least 100 times over the last 3 years? Same thing with unicorn crap. Everybody has sent me every picture, every meme, every single stuffed unicorn toy. I've got it 10, 12 times over. You're not original, okay? You don't need to share it with me. I've seen it all before. Just stop. There's no reason to send it to me.
Exactly.
Okay,
Absolutely.
we won't tire you. We won't tire you more. Or I think
No, look,
we'll call.
I'll stay here as long as you want me here, but you want to get rid of me, I'm ready to leave too.
We love you.
We'd love to have you all the time.
Give us one statement, Steve Saka. That's a challenge where you can mention Los Osos Tranquiles in this statement.
Where I can mention Los Olos Tranquilos, a challenge.
Make it nice, please.
I Let me say this. Why don't you even tell me what Los Olos Tranquilos is? I don't even. I mean, what is Los Olos Tranquilos? Is
We're
it
exactly like you. We're passionate about our life with cigars. We started that like a couple of years back. We thought we can do some blogging. We have a YouTube channel, but we felt that we are a kind of layback people. We love ourselves when we smoke, and we feel that, you know, the bearish market and the bullish market. People
yes?
hate bearish market and they go for bullish, but we think in cigar we're more like bears that
Right.
don't care, they just smoke.
Yeah, I think so. But is it so? You have the YouTube and you're doing reviews. You have also a published website too. That if I went to, I would see a link to these YouTube videos, or is it just on YouTube?
Just on YouTube, and we have an Instagram. You probably
I found that
seen,
today.
Yeah, you
I'm
found
there
out
now.
today.
and we
I
have
found
one
out
of the
today.
we have one of the largest Facebook group. It's a public group. People go there and smoke and put music and post some paintings. We're like
Now,
that. We feel that luxury isn't only about cigar.
Now, is it primarily, so you both are from Beirut, right?
Yeah.
Right.
Or not Beirut, but you're somewhere in Israel, correct?
In
Okay.
Lebanon.
In Lebanon.
Oh, okay. So you're in Lebanon. Okay, big difference. So you're in Lebanon. Do you find, well, it is a big difference between Lebanon and Beirut. I wasn't joking there. That's a difference.
Beirut is the capital of Lebanon.
Right. I know that, but do you live in Beirut or do you live in the outer Lebanon?
I live in Beirut.
He lives in Beirut.
Okay. Okay. So are most of your people in your group from Lebanon and Israel and the
Bahrain,
Middle East?
Saudi,
Bahrain.
Kuwait,
Middle East,
Dubai, Middle East,
Egypt.
Iraq.
So most of the people that participate in your group live in that region of the world.
Yes.
Okay. 'Cause I mean, look, some groups, some of the international groups, they have guys from all over the place. And I'm sure you
We
have
have
some
some
that are
from
too.
Canada, from US.
Right.
Exactly.
And I mean,
Like,
is it primarily, you already said it wasn't only cigar centric, that it's into other things, but when it comes to cigars, is it primarily Cuban centric or
No, no, no.
non-Cuban centric or both?
No, no. All
Or
kinds of cigars.
we did Fuente, we did a lot of
Davidoff.
Davidoffs.
All kinds of cigars.
I mean, what are your average posters, your group participants? What are they mostly interested in? Are they interested in
7
all
out of 10
cigars
are
or mostly
Cubans.
Cuban cigars?
7
7
out
out
of
of
10
10 are Cubans.
are Cubans.
Right, which makes sense because that's what's accessible in the marketplace for most of
Exactly.
your customers in the countries that they're in. And
Exactly.
so that would make sense that would be what they would be focused on. I think that, so why would your people that participate in your group be interested in hearing from somebody like me? Why is that relevant to them?
You're a big character. I mean, at least in our circle, people talk a lot about you, your character, your personality. We have access to some of your cigars. There are few retailers in Beirut that sells your cigar, and I myself have 3 boxes. I know it's not much, but my friend Ziad is sending me samples of all your cigars. They are already in Dubai. They will be posted to me like in a couple of days.
Okay. Yeah, because I don't even know what countries I sell in over there. I'd actually have to look at a list because they give me a list. I don't think that we have a distributor anywhere in Lebanon or in Israel, or I don't think Dubai either. So I don't even know where those cigars are being bought from. Let me take a look. Is there a way for me to figure that out?
Actually, one of our friends now just posted that we, Los Osos, succeeded in widening the bracket. People here, pre-Los Osos, were very much focused on Cubans, and understandable why. But with us, people start looking outside the box, and we brought to the table some other great brands. You're one of them. Roma Craft, Oliva.
Keep
Padron,
talking. I'm not ignoring you. I'm trying to
Fuente.
look for something. It's just I got this little Instagram thingamajiggy set up right in front of my monitor. So I'm trying to figure out how I can find this answer. You think I would know? You think I would know where my cigars are sold, but I honestly don't. I don't even know where they're sold in the United States. I don't get involved very much in sales. It's just not my thing. So, oh, that doesn't answer that question either. And this is a harder question than I thought it would be. I know that somewhere I have a list of international customers because they sent me one. So I just got to find the email.
When it comes to your cigar, I mean, we have few accesses, point of sales here in Lebanon. I can mention them. It won't be ethical, but I may. But our international arm soi-disant, is
Right.
Ziad Salibi. He's a
In Houston.
guy living in Houston, and he keep mailing some of your cigars to me. Every time I receive a batch, there are a couple of them from you, from your cigars.
Okay. Yeah. I think I might have found this, maybe. Who knows? Here we go. It's finally opening. So I can tell you what countries I know that I'm in. I'm in Angola, Australia, Belgium, Brazil, and Paraguay, the Czech Republic, Germany, Italy. Oh, Lebanon. Lebanon is, and I apologize to the owner, Régie Lebanese des Tabac et Tombacs. That's the name
Régie,
of this.
the Régie.
Okay.
It's a governmental.
Everything should be channeled through the Régie. This is a law in Lebanon.
Right, and this is the reason why I don't want to do international sales because it's so confusing. So, and then I'm in Luxembourg, the Netherlands, New Zealand, Norway, Malaysia, Poland, Spain, Switzerland, and Venezuela. So there you go. That's where I currently am. I just like there's a lot of glaring holes in there. I mean, I'm not in Canada. They got crazy rules. I'm not in Mexico. I don't really care. You know, I mean, it's just there'll be. My attitude is eventually, look, if I do my job right, I'll end up everywhere, right?
Yeah, but you
That's
don't
kind of
want.
my attitude. If I do my job right, then eventually the cigars end up every place because if I do my job right, they sell, people want to buy them, and retailers want to sell what people are buying. It's just that simple. So rather than go, swim upstream and try to convince these people, rather than trying to convince whoever sells cigars in Israel that they have to have my cigars, it's just better to wait till they decide they want to carry the cigars. Because the truth is, they don't have to have my cigars. There's no single brand any retailer has to carry. You know what I mean?
Exactly.
I mean, so for me, it's just one of these things. But it's a pretty I wouldn't call it a good international marketing strategy if you were asking me. It's not. It's just kind of like, yeah, if you want to, great. I don't recommend it. And I really try to talk the Asian guys out of it. I really tried to talk the Malaysian out of it. I really tried to talk the Czech Republic guys out of it. I try to talk to Brazilian, Paraguay, because there's no demand. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
So
yeah.
why go through the exercise of bringing a brand into your country that you don't have someone asking for? You know what I mean? It doesn't make any sense to me. And particularly when you're a distributor, it's not like you own the brand. It's not like you have any personal interest in whether the brand does well or doesn't do well. So to me, to ask an international distributor to carry my brand, it just doesn't seem very fair to them at this point. And particularly going back to the Asian market in particular, that's even harder. But then again, I get surprised. So, Ottinger Davidoff in Switzerland. Look, none of the Davidoff stores in the United States carry my cigars. They've never asked. The only Davidoff cigar store in the United States that does, it's Jeff at Corona. Most people will be like, oh, I got to sell to the Davidoff people, blah, blah, blah. Why do I care if I sell to the Davidoff people? It just means my customers will go to another place to buy the cigars. But for whatever reason, the Swiss people, it just means the Swiss people, though, for whatever reason, they thought that Sin Compromiso was really perfect for them. And they sell a lot of Sin Compromiso in the Davidoff stores in Switzerland. The brand is doing really, really exceptionally well for them. It's one of their best brands outside of their own brand that's selling in their current retail stores. Now, I can't promise you it'll be that way next year, but it is currently. So they do crazy well with it. Countries like Spain, I don't think Spain does that great with my cigars. I think Spain's a little but again,
They're pro Habanos.
Yeah, they've always been pro Habanos. The other thing too, Spain doesn't have
with them.
Yeah, in Spain, so many of the stores, they're not really stores. Or a little case in a bodega or a little case in a restaurant, or, the guy can only carry like, maybe 13, 14, 15 cigars. Well, why the hell would he choose to carry one of mine? You know what I mean? That doesn't make any sense. You're going to carry Monte Cristo. You're going to carry Romeo and Julieta. You're going to carry Habanos Cohiba. You're going to throw in there something a little bit cheaper for the cheap guys. That might still be like a Vigueros, or maybe it'll be a New World brand. But you're not going to worry about stocking Sin Compromiso as one of your facings in your 15, 20 cigar collection.
It wouldn't make sense, right?
Yeah, it just doesn't make sense. It's just bad, And then on the other end, you have places like in the Netherlands where you have a guy like Sasha Van Orsen who owns a Nicaraguan-only cigar store. Well, it would make no sense at all if he didn't carry a wide selection of my cigars in that store. You know what I mean? So for his store, he has an unbelievable selection of pretty much everything I carry, But also, the Netherlands is a little bit more progressive cigar-wise than the Spanish. They're willing to try new and different things. You know what I mean? And then you have markets like, Dubai. I mean, how many people in Dubai are cigar smokers versus people that show off that they're smoking cigars? And if you're looking to smoke something for the prestige value alone, well, it's much sexier for you to be smoking a Bahiki. It's much sexier for you to be smoking an Opus X. It's much sexier for you to be smoking a whatever. Pick any of the million Davidoff, really expensive ones. They're all sexier things to show off smoking. So that's going to determine what the Dubai people what the retailers want. They want what their customers are going to buy. It's just that simple. It has nothing to do with whether something is the best.
True, absolutely.
Retailers are not stocking their shelf on what's the best and what's the worst. Now, some of what they have will be the worst, and some of what they have will be the best. But that isn't the reason why it's there.
They are selling all.
Right.
It's all about marketing.
It's all about the turns. It's all about what sells. It's all about what the customers are buying
The bill,
and what they're asking
the
for.
ticket.
Right. And I even tell U.S. retailers, you got to stock like 90% of your stock based on the numbers. Don't ever let more than 10, 15% be based on love. Because if you start going beyond that number, you're going to run a business that's unsuccessful. And then you won't even be able to have the 10 or 15% love. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
You have to eat your vegetables in order to be able to have your dessert. It's just the way it is.
Exactly.
So I take a much different approach when it comes to just sales and distribution. And it seems to be working out well for us. We continue to, we nearly doubled in size last year. We're already up this year, like almost 70% year to date. I don't have enough cigars to fill all the orders, which sucks because I hate that. But we're working our way towards it. So it's just been nice organic growth. It's been too much, but you're grateful for it, right? Because the opposite side of the coin is that things aren't selling, and then that just sucks. So if you got to choose between being oversold or undersold.
Anyway, in the sales and everything. What if you have one final word to end this beautiful session now? What it would be?
I think I'm going to talk about in relation to my cigars.
Yes.
I think it's really important for a consumer to try a variety of my cigars because they're all very different. They're meant for different customers. They're meant for different smoking experiences. So I could see someone smoking a Sombra Mesa and just go, it was good, it was decent, but kind of boring to me. You know what I mean? Whereas a Mi Querida Tricky Traca might be perfect for them. And I think that's one of the things, because normally with most makers and most brands, they tend to be very similar cigars. Where in my line, the cigars are significantly different than one another. If there's a brand, that brand has a reason, and the cigar in the brand is a different cigar. So I think it's important that if you're trying to figure out which of my cigars to try, you're really better served trying around, playing the whole field a little bit to kind of figure it out. Now, if you find out that you really like Nikkei Rita, then Tricky Troc and Omagog are good options. You know what I mean? If you find that you really like Sobremesa Brulee, then probably in Muestra, the Exclusivo is probably the one you're going to find to be the most favorable. If you find that you tend to prefer more of that Tricky Troca kind of flavor sensation, you're probably going to find a Naka Tamale or an Unstolen Valor to be more in your wheelhouse. So I think when it comes to my products, I think it's kind of important to try them because unlike with most manufacturers, most people have like one or two cigars that everybody just kind of universally says this is their best cigar. But that really isn't the case with me. I have people that think Sobremesa is my best cigar. I have people that think Brulee is my best cigar. I have people that think Tricky Troc is my best cigar. I have people that think Unstolen Valor is my best cigar. People that think Sid's my best cigar. And that's good for me because that's what I like. Because that means they're finding something that really speaks to them personally, flavor profile wise. And I think that that's probably the one takeaway. I think it's really hard to just smoke. You can't judge Dunbarton based on any one of our individual brands. Because I don't think any one brand in itself represents the company.
Excellent. We know you don't believe in cross branding. Anyway, Steve Saka, we thank you so much for your time. It's been a lovely night for us. It's been a very exciting night to have you on Los Osos Instagram. And we wish you all the luck. We wish to get more of your cigars so we can smoke a better cigar and we have a better moment smoking a cigar. For that, we thank you very much. Gentlemen and ladies, we have presented you what I chose to name the author, the maker, and the rock, Mr. Steve Saka. You are.
Thank you very much, gentlemen. I enjoyed myself. And to answer the question I saw going
We
by,
enjoyed ourselves
yes,
also.
Vitolas
Thank
make
you,
a
Steve.
difference. Vitolas make a difference. You do need to sample different Vitolas. Don't become locked into I'm a Toro guy or I'm a Corona guy because you're missing out on a lot of different experiences within any given brand. So I think
right.
so. All right, everybody. Everybody have a great
We love
night.
you.
Thank
We
you.
love you,
Thank you
Saka.
very much for
Bye-bye.
your time
Thank you.
again. Thank you.
Bye.
اعمل له انت ما بدك شيله لا انت